I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is our regular meeting for June 13th at 6 o'clock. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Banks,
Present.
Brightwell,
Here.
Cruz,
Present.
Frazier, Hoskins,
Here.
Mandelbaum,
Present.
Taylor.
Here.
Madam President, you do have a quorum for the regular meeting, and will excuse Councilman Frazier. Thank you.
Thank you. Would we all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Now we come to our communications for our regular meeting. The City of Southfield City Council has established the following rules of procedure for all speakers. No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or other elected official that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member or elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language toward any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the city council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the order of conduct of the public meeting of the city council, and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. Thank you. First, we have Mr. Greg Keeler.
Good evening, Greg Keeler, Southfield residents. This past weekend, there was about 7 articles just on Saturday about PFAS and forever chemicals throughout the United States and in Europe. In Maine, they passed the Healthy H2O Act for well water. And the federal government gave them money for testing and checking it out. I hope we do something like that here, which I believe at one time was talked about by our administrator, testing the water, but also Maine has this act, so I hope you look into it for having it here. Mr. Brightwell brought up one of the things that I brought up, that some people use well water for watering their grass. I brought that up because that contaminant from the water has been put up on now our lawn. And that contaminant will now possibly wash off from the yards
Mr. Keeler,
into our
is your
sewer.
mic on? Is your mic on?
I believe so.
Okay.
But I was talking down.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, that's better.
Okay.
All right.
That contaminant, if it is coming out of the well, watering the grass, can go into our sewer, which means it goes into our main. That's why I asked one of the questions to have it tested to make sure, which I also know he brought up, but that's why I emphasized that. And because it's so much brought into the practice. I know I had a meeting with Councilman Taylor in which I talked about PFAS, but after I finished talking about it, the reason why I said no was because I looked at everybody's face in there when I was done, and their face was, no, something I won't ever see again. So that's why I said no. And that's why I try to be as gentle as possible about talking about this subject. There is a site on our Attorney General's site that has PFAS contamination and combating PFAS. It's on michigan.gov that gives you some of the information that shows you where there are different sites that are within Michigan. And what that is benchmarking where it has traveled to. And that was the thing I wanted to get here, was benchmarking, has it got here or has it got into our well water? That was all.
Thank you. I have no one else signed up for communications today, so we will move right into presentations. And our first presentation is by Oakland County, the Wagner-Pizer Act Staffing Proposed Rule.
Good evening, Council President,
Good evening.
Mr. Mayor, Honorable Board. We have a very big issue coming forward. Oakland County has contacted us at Michigan Works that we are threatened to lose a large portion of our funding, and Jennifer Llewellyn, who represents Oakland County Michigan Works, is here to speak on this issue on our behalf. So, Jennifer?
Good evening.
Good evening.
As Shelley indicated, my name is Jennifer Llewellyn. I'm the director of the Oakland County Michigan Works Agency and the manager of workforce development for Oakland County. Thank you for allowing the time this evening to discuss an important issue, probably one of the most significant challenges that the state's workforce system has ever faced. And it will pose difficulties for our job seekers and businesses across the state. The City of Southfield has graciously operated our Oakland County Michigan Works Southfield office on our behalf for the last nearly 40 years. And I'd like to, before I get started, give a special thank you to the council, Mayor Seibert, Fred Zorn, Shelley, Lisa Strasky, and Lena Zachariah for their leadership over the course of many years. The state's workforce system is at risk. A proposed rule change at the federal level would gut the very system that serves 675,000 job seekers and 32,000 businesses each year. And if those numbers give you some pause, they give me some pause as well. I'd like to give you some background and context about why we're opposing this rule change. The United States Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration drafted a rule change to the Wagner-Pizer Employment Services Program. And this new rule, as written, would remove the state of Michigan's authority over its workforce system and leave a disjointed, less efficient structure. The proposed rule would change from local staff, like your City of Southfield staff that work in the Oakland County Michigan Works Southfield office, to move to state of Michigan merit staff. So you might be wondering, what is Wagner-Pizer and why does it matter? So these are the dollars through the state of Michigan that all of the Michigan Works agencies use to deliver all of our services to job seekers and businesses. These services and funds are integrated into nearly everything that Michigan Works does. It's the foundation of the system. The Department of Labor believes that by transitioning from local staff, so from your city staff to state staff, that it would allow for better support of the unemployment insurance agency when the unemployment insurance system is overwhelmed. But let's actually look at the facts. The loss of this funding for the local system would result in more than 400 Michigan Works staff across the state being impacted. It would be reduced from 400 Michigan Works staff delivering these services down to only 90 state of Michigan staff. This would result in a caseload for those 90 staff of nearly 1,000 people each. And it wouldn't be connected with our other services and programs. If this is implemented, the new staffing rule would also result in job loss in the system, including staff from the City of Southfield at our Oakland County Michigan Works Southfield office. And statewide, we would lose 220 full-time staff across the Michigan Work system. Without these services and funds, we would have to close 20 of the 99 Michigan Works offices across the state, primarily those in rural communities, but almost half the centers across the state would have to reduce their hours of service. A very impactful program here in Oakland County and for the city of Southfield is the Going Pro Talent Fund. In Oakland County, 145 companies receive $3.4 million to train existing employees, new hires, and create apprenticeships. These Wagner-Pizer funds are currently used for the administration of that program. And 88% of the Michigan Works agencies across the state would have to dramatically reduce our services to employers. It gets worse. We did a survey of the Michigan Works system across the state, and we found that if this rule is implemented, that 80% of the Michigan Works agencies statewide would have to reduce our services to veterans. 63% of us would have to reduce our services to the refugee and immigrant population. 31% of us would have to reduce some of our programs for formerly incarcerated individuals. 86% of us would have to reduce services to youth and college students, including career awareness events and the My Career Quest event, which is an award-winning career awareness event. And a concerning statistic for this council, and I know it is for Shelley, is that there would be a dramatic reduction of the services we provide to businesses. 88% of us would have to reduce those services, including eliminating virtual and in-person job fairs. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and what it means to Oakland County businesses and residents and job seekers. Our Clean Slate program, which we launched last year, we've had 2,800 applicants for that program. Just last week, we expunged a record for our 100th applicant. That program would have to be discontinued. The 300 refugees and immigrants that we're working with to access ESL courses, get their credentials transferred to lead to meaningful employment and to connect with resources, we would no longer be able to provide that service. And the more than 3,000 businesses that we serve each year would have to wait for services, meanwhile, while the positions at their companies remain vacant. And unfortunately, we would be forced to lay off somewhere between 20 to 25 of our Oakland County Michigan Works staff across our 6 offices, including merit-based and AFSCME represented employees here at the city of Southfield. The Department of Labor's premise that this would allow better integration with the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency, it's a bit flawed because we already enjoy a great working relationship with the Unemployment Insurance Agency. During the COVID-19 pandemic, nearly 500 Michigan Works staff were pulled from their jobs to support the backlog at the Michigan Unemployment Insurance Agency. And we managed 1.3 million telephone calls, took 6,447 claims, and unlocked 64,375 accounts. So I know that serving businesses and residents, particularly underserved populations, is a top priority for the city and this council. So if you feel strongly about the devastating effect that this proposed rule would have on your community, there is a public comment period that is open until June 21st, 2022. Individuals can go on the Federal Register website, which is regulations.gov, and they can search for Wagner-Pizer and leave a public comment about why we want to leave Michigan Works workforce system the way that it is. In addition, we're respectfully requesting that the city of Southfield and this council, along with the AFSCME team, team up to submit a public comment. We appreciate you sharing any of your experiences and taking action to protect those like Lisa and Lena and the staff at Southfield who support so many people in our communities. Thank you for your time and consideration. We appreciate your support in advance in protecting your system, your center, and one of the longest serving, most effective workforce networks in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, do we have any comments?
Madam Chair.
Councilman Brightwell?
obviously, I digested your comments. It seemed obviously very devastating. How, maybe you mentioned it, how did this get here? I mean, how did this get here to be so destructive, and why was it captured somewhere along the lines that this is bad? How did it get here?
Great question. So it's our understanding that at the federal level, at the Department of Labor, they're looking for solutions to provide better support to the unemployment insurance system, which is a separate system, but a partner system to the workforce system. So the thought is that if we have state staff that also understand the unemployment insurance system, that they could shift from the workforce system over to the unemployment insurance system when there's high demand there. And where that's flawed is that when there's high demand at the unemployment insurance agency, there's also high demand in the workforce system. So I won't bore you with the 125 pages of proposed rules that are released, but essentially in a nutshell, they're looking for opportunities to improve the unemployment insurance agency system, and they see this as an option.
Okay.
Madam President, we are under the consent agenda asking council to adopt a resolution opposing this action. And I'd like to Councilman Brightwell's question, the federal government may have the simple desire of one size fits all, but we know very well that the best solutions come at the local level. Let the state determine locally how to determine this. And as Ms. Llewellyn has said, Michigan has had a prize-winning career, get people back to work, workforce agency. It's been a national model. Why in this guise to, when we talk about, giving people choice and independence, let Michigan determine what works best for Michigan. And we do have a model system. And this one is just, it's almost insane. It makes no sense.
Thank you. So I don't think, this was just a presentation for us, so there's no action for us at this point, but we have something under the consent agenda. Is there anything else that you would like to leave us with?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, council. Next, we have the mayor and council joint resolution for Juneteenth, the Freedom Festival.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Once again, we're coming up upon Juneteenth, and in Southfield, we don't celebrate a day, we make it a week. So before you this evening is a joint mayor-council resolution declaring Juneteenth week in the city of Southfield from June 15th to 22nd, 2022. Whereas Juneteenth is a holiday marking the end of slavery in the United States, and whereas this year marks the first federal Juneteenth Freedom Day recognition, and whereas when the Union Army General Gordon Granger landed at the Texas port city of Galveston in 1865 as the Civil War drew to a close, one of his first actions was to read the General Order Number 3, which stated that all slaves are free and that former masters and slaves have absolute equality of personal and property rights. And whereas following his statement, June 19th became the emancipation date for those long suffering for freedom. And whereas since then, as the oldest celebration commemorating the end of slavery in America, this tradition of celebration has remained strong well into the 21st century to recognize the triumph of the human spirit over the cruelty of slavery and to honor the strength, endurance, and faith of African American ancestors. And whereas it is imperative that citizens across the state join together to acknowledge a time in our history that carried on one of the nation's ideals of equality and democracy and celebrate the joys of liberty and justice for every American citizen. And whereas Southfield once again observed Juneteenth with a week-long celebration of history, arts, entertainment, recreation, and conversation. The resolution then goes on to outline the activities starting June 15th. We have the flag raising out front ceremony at 5:30 p.m., followed by jazz and blues at the library, the Juneteenth edition at 6:30. On the 16th, we have a timeline of dance. We have book displays at the library, and we have a Juneteenth luncheon sponsored by Parks and Rec. On Saturday morning, we have the mayor's Juneteenth walk at 10 a.m. starting out front. And then the rest of the day is followed by things at the library, as well as through 9 o'clock at night with Parks and Rec. Also involved in this are the Suffolk Historical Society, which has done a video of reenactors. So that'll be playing at the various events. On Sunday, the 19th, the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Southfield Chapter will have its virtual program. And the tie-in for that you can find on the AKA's Omega Chapter website. And then on Monday, the 20th, City Hall will be closed. And on the 22nd, at our accelerator, we have the Juneteenth pitch event, which is like Shark Tank for actual small businesses in Southfield. This will go from 3:30 to 6:30 at the accelerator. So now, therefore, be it resolved that the mayor and council of the city of Southfield, county of Oakland, state of Michigan, do hereby proclaim June 15th to 22nd, 2022 as Juneteenth week in the city of Southfield, and encourage all citizens in Southfield to participate in June 15th Freedom Week and celebrate African American history, culture, while continuing to promote diversity, equality, and a strong sense of community in our city. I'm looking for a motion.
Thank you.
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve the mayor and council joint resolution naming June 15th through 22nd Juneteenth Freedom Festival for the city of Southfield.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilwoman Banks, for the approval or adoption of the joint resolution for Juneteenth, for the June 15th through the 22nd of 2022, as presented to this evening. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next, we have appointments.
And I'll start off. I have three, and then I know Councilman Mandelbaum has the others.
Yep.
You may remember about 5 months ago, I came before you for an appointment to the DDA board. There was a new president, regional president for Southfield and Novi Ascension Hospital. And Roland Cruikshank, you approved his appointment. Well, Mr. Cruikshank has been relocated to another hospital in the Ascension system. And so this evening, I'm asking for approval of the appointment of Dr. Gary Druskovich. Dr. Druskovich is the regional president and chief executive officer at Ascension, Michigan, and he heads up Novi, Southfield, and I believe, Rochester and Brighton campuses of the hospital. Being our largest employer, Ascension, and a very prominent force in the DDA district, I'm asking that you approve the appointment of Dr. Druskovich. He cannot be here this evening. I will invite him back to introduce him to the council, but the DDA work goes on, so I'd like to fill this seat this evening.
Okay. Council?
Give me the.
Do
Councilwoman
we have to
Banks?
go one by one, or can we do the three mayoral?
Do you want to do all three of yours together?
It's up to your
Okay.
favor, madam.
Okay, we can, if you want to go ahead and do the other two. And then we'll
Okay.
do 'em all.
And then we have 4 vacancies on the Art Commission. 2 are council appointees, 2 are mayor. So I'd like to speak to Sharon Jones, if she's in the audience, to come up. And Kiara Thomas. Kiara Thomas here, please. Both of these, hello. Both of these ladies have offered up their services to fill 2 of the vacancies of the 4 on on the city's Public Arts Commission. So I'm asking your support to approve these appointments.
Councilwoman Banks?
Yes, I move that we appoint Dr. Gary Duskovich to the Downtown Development Authority, and Shireen Johnson and Kyra Thomas to the Public Arts Commission.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Banks, supported by Councilman Brightwell for the approval of the appointment by the mayor's appointment to the Downtown Development Authority of Dr. Gary Druskovich, and the mayor's appointment to Public Arts Commission of Sharon Jones and Kiara Thomas. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Appointments
Thank you.
are accepted.
We'll be in touch. Meeting next week.
Congratulations.
Madam President, can we swear the mayoral appointments in and then come back to the council appointments really quick?
Oh, sure, sure. We have to do a swearing in, ladies.
Well, all right, tell me so.
Okay.
How are you?
Just raise your right hand for me. The right. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Southfield, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Southfield Public Arts Commissioner to the best of my ability. So, Sharon, you're first. Thank you, you're all set.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Next, we have our council appointments by Councilman Mandelbaum.
Good evening.
Good evening.
The Council Boards and Commissions meeting, subcommittee with myself, Councilman Cruz, and Councilman Hoskins met last week. We would like to make a recommendation to the full council for several appointments. Some members could not be here. If you are here, though, please come up when I call your name. For the Public Arts Commission, we have Ms. Lillian Crum and Adrian Ziegler. We have the Construction Board of Appeals, Noah Klein. For the Zoning Board of Appeals, Etwal Libet. The Historic Designation Advisory Board is a reappointment of Darla Van Hoy. And the Administrative Civil Service, we would like to appoint Ari Gelberman as an alternate. And their terms are listed in the council packet as well.
Okay, council?
Madam President,
Yes.
I'd like to move approval, as being a member of the board and commissions. So we had an opportunity to see all these individuals, and they're very well qualified and ready to serve. So again, I move approval appointment of Ari Gelberman to the Administrative Service as an alternate committee, Adrian Ziegler for Public Arts, Lillian Crum for Public Arts. Construction Board of Appeals, Noah Klein, and Zoning Board of Appeals, Etoile Libet, and Darla Van Hoy for the Historic Designation Advisory Board.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilwoman Banks for the approval of the appointments as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you? No, okay, so here tonight we have two two arts commission, then we have a zoning board of appeals and a ACS. Okay, just raise your right hand for me. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and the Charter of the City of Southfield, and I will faithfully discharge the duties of Southfield Arts Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, and ACS Civil Service to the best of my ability. Okay. Mr. Gilberman, you're first. If you sign right here for me. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Okay, you're all set. Adrian, you can sign right there. How you doing? Yep. Okay. And Ms. Crum, right here. Thank you so much. There you go. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
You want to do it now? You want to do it now?
Well, it's next, right?
You want to read it? Okay. Okay.
Just want to make sure we get it in.
Okay. Next, we have our minutes. We have minutes for our regular meeting minutes for May 2nd, regular meeting minutes for May 9th, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for May 11th, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for May 12th, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for May 18th, Committee of the Whole meeting minutes for May 19th, and our regular meeting minutes of May 23rd.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to just add a correction, if I may. I already spoke with the city clerk, but the minutes on May 2nd should have Councilman Mandelbaum with an arrival time of 6:37 PM. Otherwise, I'm absent, but I still voted on things, so. But if there's no other objections, I'd like to make a motion. Oh,
Madam-
there you go.
Madam Chair, I did speak to the clerk earlier today about some minutes, and I think they were not necessarily show-stopping, but there was perhaps something that should be expressed in the minutes, that when we have a visitor and/or someone promises something to be done, I would like to see that reflected in the minutes. And especially, let's say on page 18 of the May 2nd minutes, the DIA representative was here, and they promised that the art that is placed on our campus would be restored and/or maintained. And on page 18, it only said that we talked about it. So I would like to make sure that on a going forward basis, when the vendor, someone promises something, it should, something explicit should be expressed in the minutes. And this is, I've gotten calls, and luckily, unfortunately, we could go back to the minutes and we could reference certain things that a vendor stated. And most, to be more explicit, I gotten calls on the Chick-fil-A development on Telegraph, and I could go back to the minutes, well, the clerk, and someone in the clerk, so I'll go back to the minutes, and we could get explicit statements from Chick-fil-A telling us how what they were doing would not impact the traffic on Telegraph. So that's just a point. I read the minutes, and the minutes are there for a reason, and they serve a purpose. And the people who call me on, let's say that example, they were satisfied that the city council and the city of Southfield had done their job in making sure that certain things were, in essence, certain things would be taken care of. And if it wasn't for the minutes, I couldn't have assured the individual that the city council and the city of Southfield had done their job. So that is just nothing to stop the publication of these minutes, but something that should be a definite on a going forward basis. Whenever a vendor or someone who comes before us promises something, it should be expressed in the minutes. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. We have,
Madam President,
yes.
if there are no more changes or discussion, I'd like to move approval of the minutes for May 2nd, May 9th, for the regular meetings, May 11th, 12th, and 18th as committee of the whole, and 19th, I'm sorry, and then the regular meeting, May 23rd as well.
Point of order for me, please. Didn't we start with?
There was already a motion on the floor with President Pro Tem Mandelbaum.
Yes,
Oh, okay. So I just need to second it?
yes.
Well, second.
Thank you. I just wanted to
It
make
had been so long, I don't know, I didn't know how long, I forgot.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz for the approval of the minutes as presented with the corrections noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Brings us to our consent agenda. We have 4 items under our consent agenda. The first being Plum Hollow fireworks permit. The next being our Wagner-Pfizer Act staffing rule. The third is the appointment of the representative and alternate to the Southeastern Oakland County Water Authority. And the fourth is the historical district designation for McKinley Schools. All of the details and paperwork were in our council packets. So council, are there any items that you want pulled for discussion, or can we vote on these? Okay, ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
move that we approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, and D as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to approve the consent agenda items A, B, C, and D as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Brings us to our public hearings.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, we're here for a public hearing to confirm special assessment role and to direct the city treasurer to levy special assessments. Standard Special Assessment Resolution Number 5, City Center Advisory Board, Special Assessment P-1174 for fiscal years 22-23 through fiscal years 26 through 27 for operating purposes. I have a schedule. We're at the last phase. This has been began in February of this year. This is the designated district, which was first established in 1992, has expanded, but the current boundaries were approved by council on April 17th, 2017. As earlier stated, the city center was established in 1992 through the principal shopping district. It was first created as an assessment of 1 cent per square foot of building area. Today, it represents over 10 million square feet of non-residential use and a land area of approximately 1.76 square miles. In summary, the funds will be used for the development, promotion, and maintenance of the city center area, including placemaking through capital investment, significant financial contribution to construction of shared use pathways and sponsoring a bike share program, marketing of business and events, promotion of special events, and economic development initiatives. The budget is in line with Office of Management and Budget line item requirements, includes administrative support, operating expenses, supplies, special project and professional services, community event sponsorship and contributions, maintenance and improvements, and land improvements. The public hearing is to consider a 5-cent per square foot of non-residential for the next 5 years. And after the conclusion of the public hearing, I'll be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, so I now declare the public hearing open. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this topic, please come forward and give your name. Seeing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. Council, do we have any questions or?
I did want to mention that the city assessor is here, and he has certified the role,
Oh,
but
thank
he's
you.
available for questions as well.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes, just a question. I know that, this is used, obviously, to enhance the city center with special projects or different things that we do. Has there been, maybe we do this and I'm not aware of it, but is there anything that we do with the money for businesses, like small grants for them to either do landscaping, signs, new signs, things to spruce up their businesses within the city center?
The projects that are defined in the act are pretty much in the public realm for the benefit of all. Now, we have entered into partnerships with funding with individual businesses where we've leveraged capital improvements on public realm and received easements, or they invested in signage and other enhancements on their property, but it's always been in tandem with public improvements that benefit everyone in the district. We do the Eat to the Beat concert and other events throughout the year, primarily to assist businesses in the attraction and retention of employees. But they realize that the investment that's being made into the public realm benefits everyone and helps to attract and retain their employees. They've been supportive in that realm. So we haven't done specific improvements for a particular business. It's really been those that benefit all.
Okay. And that's something that you said is built into
The principal shopping district defines what we can and can't do.
okay.
And we have used money to leverage grants to Transportation Enhancement Act grants or their equivalent has been successfully received because of the matching grants that the city center has provided in addition to the city or Lawrence Tech University and others.
Okay. So, not to do with this, but Shelley's still here, so maybe Shelley can look into something for that citywide, something to enhance businesses, but thank you.
And again, I just go back to, we have to spend the money within the boundaries of
Correct.
the district as well.
But if we can't use the money that we're assessing, might as well come up with something for the entire city. So, thank you.
Thank you. So you're looking for us to,
Approve the resolution
as
that
presented,
has been included in your packet
resolution number 5?
that would, City Council hereby directs the city treasurer to levy each July 1st for 5 consecutive years, beginning July 1, 2022, against the properties identified in the special assessment roll, SADP-1174, for fiscal years 22-23 through fiscal years 26-27. The various sums identified in said roll, and to notify each property owner of the amounts due, which is based on 5 cents per square foot of non-residential.
Madam President,
Yes, Councilman Cruz?
I move that we approve Resolution Number 5, City Center Advisory Board Special Assessment P-1174 for the 22-23 and 26-27 calendar years for operations and purposes as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the special assessments role and direct the city treasurer to levy the special assessment as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, we have three ordinances to enact.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we enact ordinance number 1751, the rezoning request of Design House to rezone .51 acres of land from B1 to B3.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to enact ordinance number 1751 as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam,
Next.
I'd like to move that we enact ordinance number 1752, the council-initiated zoning ordinance text amendment to expand the Northwestern Highway Corridor District,
Support.
PZTA 22-0001.
It's been presented by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to enact ordinance number 1752 as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the enactment of ordinance number 1753, ordinance amendment for Chapter 116, Fire Prevention Regulations.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to enact ordinance number 1753 as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you, council. Next, we move to our agenda items for discussion and/or action tonight. And our first is for the report from the Finance Committee regarding the facility needs. Councilman Brightwell?
Yes. Starting in, I think, 2016 or 2017, I requested that the city embark on a comprehensive need assessment for all our facilities. That project was completed in 2020, and yes, the report March of 2020. The reason for the delay is obviously we needed money to fund the need assessment. But starting tonight, we have the need assessment indicated we have $164 million worth of improvement or a modernization and or retrofitting for all our facilities. The Finance Committee, and the bulk of those expenditures are on this campus. The Finance Committee has embarked with the administration and also with our advisor, OHM, to start looking at implementing all these expenditures. The expenditures will obviously take some time, and it will take from 10 to 15 years to fulfill all the needs of the need assessment. But we determined that the initial step in spending the money, in spending taxpayers' money, what would be to get council declaration and or approval that this campus will be our campus into perpetuity. So that pretty much means that we didn't want to spend money if 2 years down the road we start getting questions about moving this campus, the municipal campus and or the municipal offices. So the Finance Committee has determined that we would like to get a resolution from council stating that as of this point in time, the municipal campus for the city of Southfield will be located at this particular location. So we will start initially making investments, doing the doing all the fixturing that needs to be done, in this particular facility. And before we go forward, I know the first question might be, how will we implement this? We would ask OHM to go through again, and we would deal with the spatial utilization. That would be job one, be spatial utilization for the municipal campus. And obviously, that takes money. Everything takes money, but before we start spending taxpayer money, I would like to get a resolution or guidance from council that this will be our campus into perpetuity, into forever. And so that way, we can obviously feel very comfortable spending the money that's needed to implement the comprehensive need assessment.
Okay, thank you. Council, do you have any questions? Councilman
Yes,
Mandelbaum?
One's a comment, one's a question. The first comment that I have is I'm not in favor of moving our campus. I think this is a great centrally located place. We have our library, we have our police station. We're trying to build this downtown. I think this is a perfect location right in the middle of the city. So if we're asking if the council wants to move, my answer would be no. The second question I have, is there a copy of the needs assessment that is available to all of council?
Yes. I'm fairly certain that it might have been distributed about a while back, about a couple of years ago, but obviously, Mr. Zorn, we can just, well, go ahead, speak.
It was distributed, and it was supposed to be distributed as part of this packet, and I apologize if it was not. And we can correct that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That's an answer.
Was that all, Mr. Mandelbaum?
For now.
I know, you gotta watch you. Well, I'm gonna go totally opposite of what Mr. Mandelbaum said. I actually would like to see us move. And I was hoping that the municipal campus would maybe be relocated into the Northland Development Project, so that it would bring a little more vibrancy down to the southern portion of Southfield, and also open up this space as we're trying to build this corridor of restaurants and eateries and walkable type venues and so forth. It just kind of fits more and could even, I don't know, ultimately blend into the golf course. I don't know if, we haven't talked about keeping the golf course or not here. No, I mean, like moving it or nothing like that. But just saying, if that ever turned into a possibility, that could be there too. But I thought that, in my mind, and I don't know the price point on building from scratch. And so Mr. Brightwell and I, we did have a discussion about it. And it seems that, the most cost effective is to stay here, that we can retro everything to meet the needs of what we have. I would simply like to ask that in that process, and once we get the document back again so I can review it, that the council members get some actual space in City Hall, and so that we can have time to do work and meet with constituents or whomever we need to meet with, because at this time, as we all know, most of our work is being done in our own homes, on our own internet, and everything like that. And I think that, it'd be nice to have some office space and privacy outside where we can meet with folks and do things of that nature. So I'm not against what Mr. Brightwell is speaking of in terms of what he's presented. All I'm just saying, those are just some of my thoughts. But I would definitely be fine staying here and, with just a few maybe little additions I have in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. To Councilman Mandelbaum and Councilman Cruz, the Finance Committee discussed this item at great length several times, and we thought before we go any further, we wanted to bring it back before council to see do we want to stay on this campus or don't we want to stay on the campus? There is a very large study that has been presented by, I believe it was OHM, and we thought if this honorable body approved staying here, what we would do is the Council Finance Committee would review what was presented, because there's so many portions to it, bring back to council what maybe our top 3 or 5 recommendations are, and then within those recommendations, there's like a 100-page document to support each one of it. So it's a very lengthy document, but we didn't want to go any further until we had the understanding that everyone was in favor. I know myself, Councilman Frazier, and Councilman Brightwell are in favor of staying on this campus. Years ago, when this campus was developed, it was developed to be like a one-stop shop. You could drop your children off at the library. The parents could come to do some business here at City Hall, or, you know, they could play baseball or soccer while maybe someone goes to the library. And I think we've accomplished that here. We've recently had some big-ticket items that we've approved, example, the front lawn and other things. So it's like, before we keep approving things, we better make sure, do we want to stay here and don't we want to stay here? And then within this campus, there was discussion about possibly, without naming it, relocating maybe a department and or building, and possibly that could be moved to your recommendation, Councilman Cruz, at which point maybe more offices could be created for council. So we have discussed that and have looked at it, but to go any further, we felt it was useless until we had the general consensus of everyone. So I think that's why we brought it forward. Thank you.
Councilman Hoskins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would just add, too, that I am also for us staying on this campus. I would just wanted, like, some clarity on the staying here in perpetuity. Is that just for the security of knowing, like, we're going to be working on this, like, before we start making all kinds of investments, making sure that we're going to actually stay here on the campus? And, okay, I just want to make sure. All right, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I did receive the needs assessment. It was supposed to be in our packet that we received on Friday, and I did review a lot of, first of all, I am in favor of us staying here on campus. But some of the things, this was done in 2020, some of the things that's on here, we've already done or looked at, like you said, you know. So this, like the training tower really is not even an issue, I don't believe anymore, because the fire department is going another way with that. I don't know. I just know that some of the things that's on here is no longer an issue. But I do like the idea of having, knowing that you have the consent of, or the general consensus of the entire council, that we do want to stay here. I do like the idea of prioritizing things. I know that we can't do everything at one time, but we can, like we do everything else, chip away at it one thing at a time. And with the understanding of where the council wants to go or feels or in agreement with where we should be going, that would make that job a whole lot easier. So I appreciate and applaud the fact that we are bringing this up. At the same time, I know that it's going through the Finance Committee, but are we also aligning with the other departments? Because I know Parks and Rec is doing a whole bunch of stuff with their major projects. We have Facilities is working with the wiring and making the connections, and so we need to make sure that we're working with all departments. So I'm trying to understand the role of the finance team. I think getting the council's permission or ideas or whatever, consensus, and keeping us all on one page is fine. And I think asking us what projects or presenting which projects we want to agree that we should start working on first But I think we have to also look at what's already going on, things that have already been completed, and then tell me what the finance committee's role is. Because each committee comes back to us and reports what they're doing. And if we're saying, yes, we want to stay here, that's what all departments needed to hear. So now they're going to move forward with whatever that is that they're going to be doing, or am I wrong in that thinking?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
The Finance Committee currently meets once a month, and when we agreed to work with the administration for the implementation of the assessment, we will be meeting twice a month, the second Friday every month. The regular Finance Committee meeting will be the third Friday every month. The plan is to revisit this project, the need assessment, with the consultant, and the first thing we will look at will be the optimization of the space that we have, all the space that we have, how best to use it on today's office, corporate office, annual office best practices. And we will reconfigure this building, this campus, according to the architect. We have an architect was with us last Friday, and we will just revisit this from an optimization standpoint, the optimizing the space that we have and reconfiguring all the space to modern day office setup, how much square footage is required and those kind of things. And each segment of this report, which dealt with optimization, facilities, and just everything, they will drill down and determine, prioritize everything that needs to be done, and then we will get approval by way of the administration. Excuse me for that. We'll get approval by the administration. This is the way we want to go. But the ultimate process is we wanted to get this off the table and get it to moving, and everything that is currently being done in the city will be a part of the revised assessment study. If somebody of the department is doing something here, DPW is doing something there, Parks and Rec, all of that will be incorporated. And the fact that the administration, Mr. Zoe and his staff will be integrally involved in this, nothing will slip through the crack with respect to that needs to be done, that is currently being done. There will be no duplication of work, because obviously Mr. Zoe and his staff oversees everything that goes on in this city. So the fact that we have projects that are being prioritized, that will fall into the mix of what things are being done. And council will get a regular meeting, a regular feedback with respect to the implementation of the assessment of the NEDA's. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I can't cut this thing off.
Okay.
But anyway, I hope that kind of cleared up a little bit. But on a monthly basis, and also in dealing with our outside consultant, we will have a report or a matrix that shows all the projects that will be worked on. All of them, they will be prioritized, and I'm definitely conscious of your thought pattern of making sure that no duplicate efforts are being performed. And the fact that we will have Mr. Zorn at each of these meetings, and he will have his staff at each of these meetings, or the appropriate staff at every meeting, that will assure that nothing is being done, and, duplicated. But another side of this is, I think we already covered this, but we have already started to make some expenditures on this campus, like $8 million for the lawn. We put in charging stations downstairs. We're doing some fiber optics in this particular location. So we want to just make sure that everything is coordinated, and it's strategically being implemented. It's just a strategic focus of doing what needs to be done at the appropriate time and nothing before it should not be done. So I hope that answered to the degree. I was probably a little verbose, and plus I had to deal with the telephone, but I hope that answered your question and satisfied your concerns.
Yes, that does, and without the duplicating, and you are going to be working with the various departments. You're basically the eyes and ears for council, and you'll be reporting back to us on a regular basis, once a month or what have you. We'll be receiving a report from you guys on that, and that's fine. The committee or the agency that you're using, OHM, is going to be at a cost. Do we have that budgeted? Because now if we're asking them to come in on a monthly basis, they're going to start charging us. Am I correct?
That is, OHM is one of our architects of record. This conversation with the Finance Committee took place on Friday. I need to speak with my finance director as well as my purchasing agent regarding that. OHM has, clearly, because they did this study, very intimate information. A lot of the space utilization was conducted. It was also, we had a space utilization report done as part of our energy block grant in 2010. OHM had that information. That was part of the review. What's different regarding the space utilization, this report was produced and came out right before the pandemic hit. And if council will recall, this was to be one of the topics of our retreat. We were going to do a full presentation at that weekend retreat. So we've lost the benefit of having done that. The space utilization that needs to be reviewed is, as Councilman Brightwell said, is the efficient form. I think a lot of that has been done. It can be done relatively quickly. I have a meeting Wednesday morning. Mr. Michaels, I've asked Planner Crowd, Deputy McRena to join us, and I'm probably going to, I have not yet, but I'm probably going to have 2 members of my facilities group join us as well. One of the objectives is to come out with how we're going to handle your very question, Madam President, paying for it, and I may need to come back to council to secure funding to complete that. But I believe regarding the space utilization, we've done a lot of that. And if I may, just a couple other points, as it has been pointed out, Councilwoman Banks made a statement. We have been doing some of these things, and I've said repeatedly our goal has been to keep these boxes tight and dry. Our issues that we face are ADA compliance. We remind council those triggers are not pulled until we go through a renovation. Fire safety systems need to be upgraded and modernized, and our mechanical systems can be improved for energy efficiency, much of that paying for itself. We'd like to move this forward, but this basic question just kept coming back. There's, well, maybe we should go to another location. As it has been pointed out, this is the city center. Our ability to move forward, I got to remind council that a lot of this is dependent upon funding. Why did we move forward on the front lawn? Because of a funding opportunity. I mean, there will be opportunities that come before us. Council, this council has built a reserve of about $16.5 million at June 30th of 21 to begin this process. So we've laid some foundation, but we just need to move it to the next item. So as Councilman Brightwell has discussed, the Finance Committee has agreed to meet the second Friday of each month to discuss this. I would like to be in a position at June 20th, 27th meeting to come back with, and here's how we pay for that. But in fairness, I do need to speak with Austin and my purchasing agent just to go through that. And there is leeway by charter, again by charter, for professional services. And OHM is one of our qualified entities. And they have the bulk of this knowledge.
Well, thank you. No, I'm in agreement with it. I just wanted to understand and get my questions out and answered. I appreciate it. And to Councilman Cruz, I have been speaking with Deputy Administrator John McRena, and we do have an office that's I'm getting ready to look at, so hold tight. Maybe by the end of the week, We'll have a place for you to come
All right.
and bring your laptop and log in. But it is in the works. We are looking into that.
I think it sounds fine.
Yeah. So council is, I'm sorry, Mayor?
Well, Ms. Banks also.
Okay.
And again, I just wanted to. I'm sorry, I just wanted to reiterate again, OHM has put, it's my understanding, a lot into the various sections. So once we identify and bring back before council, and I'm just making this up, okay, we want to focus on the main municipal building here. We then can look at the 50 sections within the municipal building, pull that report, read the report to decide, is this up to date? Do we need anything further or different? And then bring it back before council. So I think that, it's my understanding that's how we were going to look at it, everything.
That's correct.
You know,
Okay.
and then we also discussed, example, like the most important, you know, the ADA requirement. We've got to make sure our roof is not going to cave in. The heating and cooling, you know, those might be the first items to address before we get into the offices and renovation, just depending on the price tag. And as we all know, everything's gone up right now,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
I'm very much in favor of staying here. It's not just about this building. We have all of the facilities that make up all of this acreage. I think one of the things that we need to look at is the court, and that shouldn't be on the burden of the city of Southfield. Rochester, Hills, and Royal Oak, within the last decade or so, got new court buildings. They serve multiple communities, and so there are issues with deficiencies with the way the 46th District Court. But as you know, I bring this up every year when we adopt our budget, that I think the city of Southfield is unfairly carrying the burden for the 46th District Court. Sure, we are the largest municipality that that court serves, but you know, there's a deficit, and we provide not only the building, the maintenance, the phone and email, all the technology for that building, as well as a number of other things so we're carrying this load. I could see the court moving someplace else, perhaps even across the street or into a vacant office building, or building something new, but again, it should not be at the expense of, solely at the expense of the city of Southfield. And should that happen, and I think it's worth pursuing, should that happen, then we ought to look at that building, perhaps moving council chambers or something that doesn't work here over there. But, you know, that's really down the road. Thank you.
Thank you. So our general consensus would be that we stay on campus. I don't think we need to vote or anything or that.
I think the
So,
city
Madam Chair, I think we
administrator
need a
wants
vote.
a motion to
Yeah,
that
we should.
effect.
do you need a motion?
Yeah, we should, so it'd be on the record.
Okay.
Okay, I'd like to move that this council agrees that we will stay on this campus and further discuss the facility needs assessment for the 26 South and Evergreen Road area.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Banks, supported by Councilman Cruz, that we agree to stay on this campus and have the Finance Committee go through the facilities needs assessment projects as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Our next item is the authorization to purchase land from Southfield Public Schools to construct a new live fire training tower for the fire department.
Good evening, Madam President, Council, Mr. Mayor, other elected and appointed officials, citizens of Southfield, and visitors. I'm Fire Chief Johnny Menifee. I brought Deputy Chief Macias and our training and safety officer, Captain Jason Donnell. He's been the point person on this project for the training tower. I'll have him speak on the next two items on the agenda. But with your permission, I'd like a moment of personal privilege for a public service announcement.
Yes, please.
Okay. Next couple of days, we're expecting some severe weather. We're expecting high winds, some severe storms to 70 miles an hour, as well as some severe heat, excessive heat on Wednesday. I'm just reminding everyone to, if you have pets, bring them in, make sure that your patio equipment is taken care of, that things could possibly fly away. And with the heat and so forth, that you check on the elderly and that your loved ones to make sure that they're okay with the change in season that's coming. I'll have Captain Jason Donnell speak briefly on both agenda items, and we'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Good evening, Council. At the December 13th, 2021 meeting, Council approved the Fire Department to proceed with the design, construction, and project management of a new live fire training tower. At that time during the presentation, it was noted that we would need to acquire approximately 1.5 acres of property from the Southfield Public Schools. To put this in perspective, this is directly between the high school's campus and the existing training field that we have at the fire station. It borders both of us. And that it should also be noted a similar land transfer occurred back in 2007 to create the existing technical rescue training field behind our headquarters station. Since your approval in December, a January 18th meeting of the school board, they approved to move forward with the transfer with the fire department, as they recognized it benefits both the school district and the fire department, us because we can utilize it for training, them because we are trying to create a fire academy program for them starting next school year. So it's mutually beneficial. They did set a few stipulations that I'll mention to you now. One is that the property would be sold to this city for the fee of $1. Any other expenses incurred, such as the titling, transfers, things like that, would be incurred by the city. There would be easements that would be remained for them to access underground utilities that are on the site, which would be standard with any type of transfer. And that they also would like some reverter language that should the fire department no longer use the parcel for firefighter training, that it go back to the school district. They were also asking for an agreement that the students of the Fire Academy program to be able to use the facility. However, in talking with legal, we're going to treat that as a separate agreement with them because we would also be granting them access to use equipment at the fire station as well. So that's not part of the property transfer. Project costs for this are not going to exceed $10,000, and that the funding is available in the local improvement revolving fund building improvements account, similar to the account that we were asking for authorization back in December for the council meeting. We're choosing to come to you asking you for the resolution to officially purchase the property, and talking with the city attorney and looking at the city charter. It's just good to have an official resolution on file for us to complete the transfer.
Okay. Council, do we have any questions? Oh, Councilman Mandelbaum?
You mentioned that the expenditures are not going to exceed $10,000. Besides the minimal cost of the land, what other costs are there?
So there'll be an appraisal, there'll be a title fee, there'll be transfers, there'll be filing fees.
Paperwork.
Yeah, paperwork, basically.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Council?
Madam President, and
Yes.
I would move that we resolve to, or approve this resolution to purchase this land from Southfield Public Schools to construct a new live fire training tower for the Southfield Fire Department.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum, to approve the authorization to purchase the land from the Southfield Public Schools and to construct the new fire training tower for the fire department as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Your second item?
Yes, Council, our next item is we're requesting authorization to award a contract for site preparations and continued project management for the new live fire training tower project. Since the December 13th approval for the project itself, we have completed a lot of benchmarks. We've gone through our planning department, our building departments, zoning board of appeal. Council has approved site preparation, special land use. Most recently, I can note that we have just received approval for the land purchase for the training tower, so that's a good thing as well. And the next logical step in the process is the earthwork to support the training tower. That includes items like moving soil, pouring foundations, fence lines, moving some utilities out there so we can use it. On March 11th of this year, the purchasing department posted an RFP requesting bids for companies interested in providing those preparations. The March 29th deadline came and went, and we received no bids at that time. There was then a comprehensive and collaborative review between the purchasing and fire departments along with OHM Advisors, who was retained for project management purposes, and we kind of tweaked some things and reposted the RFP. As of the April 28th deadline, we have had one bidder, Warren Contractors and Development of Shelby Township, was the sole bidder on this project. It should be noted that they are also the vendor that is being currently used for other projects within the city of Southfield. We reviewed the bid package that they submitted, and we also compared that with OHM to pricing that other municipalities are receiving around the state and the region. And basically, we realized that it is in line with the prices in the market that we're in, and that any further delays could actually potentially continue to increase the prices. I think everyone would agree that's just the market we're in. With this, we're also asking that OHM Advisors continue to provide project management. They've been a great asset to us, and they're protecting the best interests of the city. Total cost for this portion of the project total out at $649,529 and consist of the following. The site preparations from Warren Contractors total at $569,529. Project management functions from OHM total at $60,000, and we're requesting $20,000 in contingency funds in the event we come up with an unforeseen expense. Funding for this is also available in the local improvement revolving fund and will be repaid by the fire department in future budgets that are approved. So at this time, we're asking if there's any questions or council approve a resolution for the site prep and project management.
Oh, yeah, we got tons of questions. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Yes. Well, I'm glad that the city council approved the land for you to build. You have a great council there. My question is more with the building. I heard rumors through, I don't know if it was the building department or whatnot, that it needed a fire suppression system. And how would that work with a live fire training system?
That is correct. Per code, because we'd be 4 stories or taller, we would need a sprinkler system, which would be very unbeneficial to what we're trying to do. So because of that, we actually had to meet with the Construction Board of Appeals, and that occurred on June 2nd of this month, or of this year, where they gave us a variance where we will not be required to have fire sprinklers, which would pretty much make the live fire training impossible.
Okay, perfect. Government at its best. All right, thank you.
Councilman Brightwell?
I'm glad you were able to get a vendor, and I've been in support of this project since it was first brought to our attention. How comfortable are you all with this vendor? Since we only had one. I know he's done work before, but give me a level of comfort with this vendor.
So we did, after we received the bid, we actually invited them to come out to fire headquarters, and we sat down with OHM and purchasing and kind of worked through some items. We're feeling fairly confident that they would be able to do everything that's proposed in the project, so we're fairly comfortable with them.
They can do it on time?
Yes, that they would be able to do it on time, and that was part of the RFP package that we posted, would be site preparations complete by November of this year.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thought of one of,
Oh,
sorry.
no. You have.
I just wanted to get the overall cost again.
For the entire project, what we're asking for the site preparation and continued project management with the contingency is $649,529.
Okay, so what you were breaking down was just what's in that?
Yes, was the 649. Yes.
Okay, very good. That was all. I just want to make sure it wasn't on top of that.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
How will you be taking down the current tower once this new one is complete?
So that one will be part of, we're looking at including that with the parking lot project at Station 5. Will be coming to council in the future, I believe. Mr. Zorn, correct me if I'm wrong. For doing the flat work in the parking lot at that time, that's when that would be coming down as well. That's separate from the project that we're doing here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we authorize the award of a contract for site preparation and continued project management for a new live fire training tower for the fire department as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz for the authorization to approve the authorization to award the contract for the site preparations and continued project management for new live fires training tower for the fire department as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President, for a point of information, the last motion for the item B, who made the motion and supported that motion?
It was motioned by Councilman Cruz, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum.
And one more item with the needs assessment. That motion should be amended to be specific now for the Donald Fracassi Municipal Campus.
Oh,
Yes. So
Okay.
the maker of the motion can amend
okay. Councilwoman.
for that
Bennett.
added.
Thank you. So I would like to amend the motion to read that the Donald F. Fracassi Municipal Campus will remain at its present location. And then I believe we also stated that the Council Finance Committee will be authorized to review the facility needs assessment and bring back any recommendations before the council for review.
Yeah, thank you. And it was supported by you, Mr. Cruz.
Support.
And I'm sorry, I wasn't clear in the beginning. I apologize.
Thank you. Council, did you hear the amendment?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed to the amendment as presented?
Yes, I think we're through with that, right?
Yes, the fire department is
That's what I said.
done.
That's like, y'all good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We were just clearing up some old business,
Go save Somerset.
some earlier business. I should say
Saying that it was on fire.
earlier
I was gonna
business.
say, got old real fast.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Our next item is the presentation and discussion regarding the site plan review request for Halo Architects for the conversion of the existing Star Theater to a religious institution for Triumph Church to be located at 25333 West 12 Mile Road on the south side of 12 Mile between Case and Lockdale.
Thank you, Council. We'll do the introductory slides, and then we have Mr. Stan Robertson, architect for Halo Architects, that will conclude the presentation. This site located at 2533 West 12 Mile Road on the south side of West 12 Mile between Lockdale and Case. Existing zoning is RC Regional Center. Site plan review request for the conversion of the previous Star Theater to a religious institution for Triumph Church. In accordance with Article 15, a religious institution is a secondary primary use, along with theaters, assembly halls, concert halls, and similar places of assembly. This is the existing aerial of the former Star Theater. A little background, in 1995, Council approved a 6,000-seat theater as a special land use. And it was determined during that review that the theater constituted a secondary use. There was over 1 million square feet of office and other primary uses on the site of over 71 acres. And the proposed theater at the time represented 178,000, which was about 14% of the total square footage of all offices, and therefore was eligible as determined to be a secondary use. Council spent a lot of time looking at the differential of hours of operation, a traffic impact study, One of the conditions of approval was that a decel lane was constructed on 12 Mile, a separate boulevard entrance, and that a reciprocal driveway and parking easement be recorded. As I stated then, in 1995, the theater was a special land use. Today, the proposed religious institution is a secondary use. And overall parking is based on primary uses for the site. Again, the site is zoned RC, Regional Center, and also has a future land use designation as regional mixed use. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Robertson, who's going to talk about the proposed use, spend some time breaking down parking, improvements to the building interior as well as exterior, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. So I will go through the slides, Mr. Robertson, if you can respond to each one that's shown, and then if you have any opening comments, now is the time to make them. Thank you.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Crode. Good evening, councilmen, councilwomen. Thank you for the opportunity to present and discuss this project. We think it's an exciting project here in Southfield. As Mr. Crode mentioned, my name is Stan Robertson. I'm with Halo Architects, a church planning and design firm headquartered in Lubbock, Texas. Our project, as he mentioned, is the adaptive reuse of the Star Theater facility to become the new location for Triumph Church. From an adaptive reuse perspective, this facility and this site lends itself perfectly to what is needed and required by a church like Triumph Church. Big space, infrastructure, more than enough parking, and best of the best access to major thoroughfares evenly spaced around this parking lot. You don't find this very often, and that's why we have churches that we're working with looking for large retail box stores and parking lots that are now vacant. And in this case, we just think that Triumph has found something that is going to, from an adaptive reuse perspective, lend itself to being a good steward of the resources, both municipal as well as the church's resources, in getting in a building this size with as little demolition as possible, and which there's a lot of benefit to that, even to green building possibilities. So as Terry mentioned, we'll go ahead and go through some slides. I'll talk about each one of them. We'll start with the site plan. So we counted 8 access points for ingress and egress on this site plan. It's almost unheard of, even in a brand new development for a church of this size. That is hard to come by. It just doesn't happen very often. And that is a big benefit to the church, in the fact that you can move people on and off this property in a lot of numerous ways, using some controls on how you move them through the property. Landscaping, we're not really changing anything, but there are species out there that need to be replaced. Some of them are dead, some of them have illness, and so of course we worked with the landscape architect to come up with an inventory of what needs to be done out there to meet the city ordinance associated with the landscaping. The elevations, again, from an adaptive reuse perspective, we're trying to do as little as possible that's going to require a lot of demolition. But at the same time, we wanted to bring the building up to a more contemporary or modern look and feel. Primarily what we're going to do is shift a little bit more to the brown earth tone colors, as well as use stucco and stone, quite a bit of stone veneer around the perimeter of this building. So the interior space, to the right side of the plan, is really the area of the church. If you see to the right, you have a large worship center that's got 1,600 seats in it. Just to the north of that, or to the upper right-hand corner, That's a 300-seat, smaller, more intimate chapel space. Just to the left of the chapel in pink, that is the children's ministry that will be occupied, of course, while church is in session. And then if you jump across the lobby to the south, or to the bottom part of the plan, that is the youth ministry right below that, in the somewhat purple or blue color. Just to the right of that, that is the administrative spaces for the church, used 8 to 5 on weekdays, very little use, of course, on weekends. So parking. The interesting thing about the parking on this, this chart, of course, spells out everything from weekday parking to weekend parking. It can get pretty detailed and daunting if you look at it. A synopsis of that would be, per the parking codes, our 1,600-seat auditorium will need 534 parking spaces. To put it into perspective, the theater had 6,026 fixed seats, and under the same code, required over 2,000 parking spaces, just for the fixed seating alone. This doesn't include the 5 restaurants and other venues that were inside this 178,000 square feet. So going back to the adaptive use by the church, we then include the accessory spaces used during church services on a Sunday morning, which is our peak use case scenario. The parking count climbs to 897 spaces on a Sunday morning for church services. Okay, in addition, and to be over-aggressive calculating the parking demand, at the peak time on Sundays, we also have included office spaces that will more than likely not be open on Sunday, let alone the weekends in general. Even in that scenario, the need for Sunday morning parking spaces tops out at 1,095. That's 41, there are 41 extra spaces that we could use in our calculations to park this facility the way we have it currently designed. There's actually 218 additional parking spaces on our property, but we can't use that number in our calculations due to an existing parking agreement with the neighbor. So basically, there was 177 spaces taken out of our parking count due to the change in use to a church facility from a theater. They are still there, they are on our property, and we have exclusive use of those on weekends. So even with our aggressive overcalculation of peak usage, there's still 218 parking spaces empty and exclusively available to Triumph Church on the weekend. To put it in people terms, that's about 650 more people that we could actually park on this property on a Sunday during our peak usage of the property. So we've gone through a lot of, we did a lot of research on this, both in parking as well in traffic counts. Just something I think is important to note about traffic study. The trip count performed by our traffic engineer shows that the trip count on weekdays is being reduced by 26%. The trip counts on weekends is being reduced by 60% than when it was the actual Start Theater in use as a theater. So concerning parking, vehicular traffic, and really just the bottom line with that is that we have significantly fewer seats in the church than what was in the theater. We require less parking than the theater, and we'll produce significantly less traffic during the week as well as on weekends. I don't know really of another use that anybody could dream up for this facility that we'd be able to come in and do a presentation and actually tell y'all that there is going to be less use and traffic and less demand for parking than Triumph Church buying and developing this property. Just a couple of points that I'm going, then I'll close, but this is really going back to the green building responsibility that a lot of us have when we're designing and saying that we're going to do adaptive reuse on a facility. But we went ahead and had, in the community impact statement, it is specified in there, and there's more detail in there about this. But just to give you an idea on power, Power demand will be reduced by a large margin compared to when it was a theater. High-efficiency mechanical units will replace older antiquated units, and LED lighting will be used throughout the project to reduce the total electrical load. Currently, there are two 2,500 amp services servicing that building. Our estimates are we would need two 2,000 amp services, so 1,000 amp reduction in the actual demand for power on that building as it being used as a church. Plumbing, with change in use, there will be a reduction in the amount of water being used. That includes requirements for fire flow and less sanitary effluent generated, again, taking demand off of the municipal utilities. The last point, and I think I touched on this at the very beginning, and then I'll let you ask questions. But demolition alone, if you think about this building, 178,000 square feet that really has a mezzanine level as well, if you can find a building like this and have a use for it when it comes to adaptive reuse, it's usually a good deal all the way around. The amount of waste that would be put in the city landfill just for the building alone would have a pretty significant impact on that. In this case, our design, and we could walk you through that in detail, it's even taken a minimalist approach at how we are using each of the spaces to even reduce the amount of demolition that is going to be done as we adapt it to church use in the spaces that we've designed into the facility. So once again, reducing the amount of demolition and waste, construction waste material that will have to be put in the landfill. So I think that is really a quick nutshell approach at trying to present the project to you, and we'll open that up for questions if you do have them.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, thank you for your presentation. You know, it's been a while since any action's been over there, so it's really good to, you know, hear about some movement taking place. One question, who owns it? Does Triumph actually own it?
No, Triumph has a contract on it right now that they have.
All right. Is there anyone from Triumph here representing the church?
Not representing the church, no.
Representative of the owners.
Yes.
No, I want some, where the pastor at? That's what I want to see. But anyhow, you keep talking about the number of people that can fit in this space, right? So, I mean, to my recollection, when the theater was open, there were multiple rooms, right? You know,
20 fixed seat theaters.
Okay, so are those going to be utilized? Are they going to be pulled up and redone or something?
The actual structural walls will be maintained. The openings in those walls will be maintained, but the tiered seating will come out.
Okay, so the idea is that there'll be a sanctuary and then there'll be those extra rooms for...
They turn into children's ministry spaces, so we'll subdivide those larger spaces into smaller spaces to fit the needs of the church and the ministries.
Okay. And how many members does the church have at this point? Do you know?
And counting?
I mean, I know it's a pretty vibrant
Yes,
church,
sir.
so I totally
Yes,
understand. I was just curious about that. Have you ever done this with a theater like this before?
Yes, sir. We've done skating rinks, bowling alleys, theaters. Theaters are pretty common. Not this size, but we have done one this size, yes.
Okay. And what about green space on there? I couldn't tell on here what we did with, in terms of, you know, beautifying the
Yes.
space around there.
Right now, our plan is to maintain and improve basically the species that are out there, meet the code and what it's requiring. But right now, from what we understood, what is designed out there does meet code, and so we would take an approach coming in there and just making sure that we have healthy species on the site.
Yeah, I know, we've had a lot of redevelopment that meets code, but we've also asked that, you know, at times that people kind of maybe take a step further to beautify the place.
Yes, sir.
And so I would hope that that would be taking place. Terry,
Yes,
I see you looking.
yeah, through Councilman Cruz, the standards that we're required in 95 have been updated, so there are additional landscape screening and green infrastructure that'll have to be incorporated in this approval.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, that's 25 years ago. So we come a long way since then. Besides that, I don't think I have anything else. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
With respect to the traffic study, obviously, Sunday will be your peak time, I'm assuming, with respect to traffic, right? So what is the traffic study telling you with respect to this location?
We did it comparative to the Star Theater when it was active. So what I was mentioning earlier is that the use or trip counts will be reduced by 27% on weekdays and by 60% on weekends from when it was the Star Theater.
Okay, so there will be no disruption of traffic in that area? Is that what you're telling me, or what is that telling me?
What I'm telling you is when it was the Star Theater, there was 30% more traffic on weekdays, and on weekends, there was 60% more traffic on weekends.
Okay, so we should not be getting any complaints about traffic?
Well, from a vacant building, you probably will have some people saying, hey, it's not like it was when it was vacant. But if they were there when it was a theater, they should see a difference. There's less use it being a church than it being a 20-theater Star Theater.
Okay, so are we assuming the main entryway will be off of 12 Mile Road?
There are several access points, 12 Mile as well as Case Road.
Okay, so.
And then there's secondary exits going over to Lockdale.
Okay. Obviously, I'm not a traffic engineer, and I'm only familiar with it just from a standpoint of the entryway. I'm assuming 12 Mile was the primary entryway to the theater when it was active, and that's a major thoroughfare. Well, this is from your traffic study standpoint, was 12 Mile entryway considered to be the major entryway into this particular facility?
Well, in the traffic study, I'm sure they didn't isolate it to that single entry. What they do is they'll take the total count of parking. They will look at how many curb cuts we have leading to a certain size adjacent road or thoroughfare, and they'll do their calculations from that. Their report was it was significantly less traffic than it was when it was a Star Theater.
Okay. All right. I haven't, obviously I got a document that I didn't digest in detail, but is there, and maybe Mr. Crowe, you might know it, is there a discrepancy with the surrounding tenants with the parking in this particular location?
Well, they are objecting, but again, I want to revisit, when this was first developed, there were 4,657 parking spaces provided on the site with an additional 668 spaces land banked. The proposed development, the proposed Star Theater, would provide an additional 1,350 parking spaces for the entire development. The council and the planning commission at that time asked all the questions you're asking about traffic impact, access. There's multiple means of ingress and egress that were built into this site in order to accommodate the Star Theater. They also looked at hours of operation, and they said that the basic hours of operation of the 1 million+ square feet of office is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, with some use on the weekends. The primary uses of the theater were in the evenings during the week and on the weekends. And so they made those decisions based on a 6,000-seat theater with 20 movie projections, plus restaurants and other accessory uses within within the building. I know that we spent considerable amount of time reviewing parking and traffic impact. We slowed this project down. I believe it's going on at least 6 months now. And the other thing I will say from a zoning perspective is that this was approved as a special land use, which runs with the land. And it's the interpretation of the reciprocal parking agreement that was a condition of approval at the time that the Galleria properties are objecting to. We've reviewed this with Ms. King, and we feel that based on the zoning, that the religious institution is a secondary use. It's clearly stated in our ordinance. There are no additional parking requirements for secondary uses. And the council decided back in '95 that they made their decision based on 71 acres and over 1 million square feet of office with this secondary use of 178,000 square feet as a theater and the different hours of operation. And the best scenario I can relate to council is if you think about a 20-story office building across the street, has employees. On the first floor, it might have a florist, a barber shop, a sundries, and a small cafeteria. Those spaces don't require additional parking because they primarily service the tenants that are already there. And the parking is based on the primary user, which was calculated based on office. But the council and the commission at the time went a step further and said, based on these 6,000 seats, what would be the parking required? And that's where they determined the parking then. So that runs with the land. And as Mr. Robertson has pointed out, we had them break down the specific uses, and assuming that they're all being used at the same time based on the same scenario, this requires less parking than the theater did. So we don't believe there is a parking problem. That's not to say that some special event could come into play, and there's ways of dealing with that through the Zoning Board of Appeals. You get a special permit if you want to do something outside. But based on the zoning, based on our review of parking, based on the review of the proposed use and how it's going to be implemented, we feel there's not a parking problem. Even with respect to maybe the disagreement in the interpretation of this reciprocal parking, we feel that there's more than enough parking and that the traffic impacts have been mitigated when this was first designed for the theater.
I think you hit on specifically what I was concerned about, whether or not we would have to referee some parking issues down the road. So you're saying that given what you see in the historical data and projected data, we, city council, will not have to get in the middle of a parking dispute?
Based on the straight zoning and the previous approvals, we feel that it's been adequately addressed.
Okay, all right. You're the subject matter expert here, so I'm gonna go with what you just told
And
me.
again, we have consulted with the city attorney.
Excuse me?
We have consulted with the city attorney on this issue.
Okay, I mean, it is a question. I just want to, from a council standpoint, I don't want to see a storm coming that we got to deal with. You just told me we're not going to have this storm coming. Okay.
Councilman Brightwell, can I add one more thing? So you asked a question about the impact on the roads and what the traffic engineer stated. This is Carlos Santillo with Traffic Engineering Consultants, the last two sentences of his report. The impact on the surrounding road system and the existing surrounding businesses of the traffic generated by Triumph Church project will be significantly less than when the Star Theater was open. Therefore, the project will have no impact on the existing and proposed traffic on 12 Mile Road and other area roads and adjoining businesses.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. I know it was touched on with Councilman Brightwell, but we did receive a letter right before this meeting. I don't know if our city attorney has seen it, questioning mostly some of the land usage as well as some of the parking requirements as well. I feel like the parking requirement question has been answered. is there any problem with the land use or even the landscaping buffer between this theater and then the surrounding properties?
Your first question is, we didn't have the opportunity to review the letter that was presented through the clerk, and we will be prepared to address that prior to the final review, but the adjacent landowner has been to several planning commission meetings and has raised these objections. And again, we think it's a private matter between two parties, and it's about interpretation. But if we just review the strict zoning, religious institutions are permitted as a secondary use. It was amended, and it's clear as day in the zoning ordinance.
So-
Secondary uses do not require additional parking. The Star Theater was approved as a secondary use in 1995 as a special land use, and the special land use conditions run with the land. So for all those reasons, we believe there's not a conflict or interpretation about the use that's being proposed and the amount of parking that's required.
All right, so here's a question for you. Generally, a religious institution is required to have a masonry brick wall. Is that only when they face a residential?
That requirement is only required in a residential district, not in the regional center.
Okay. So like a B3 or in this district, their landscaping buffer does not have to be a wall. It could be what they're proposing, which would shrubbery, trees, bushes.
There'll be some upgrades, as I mentioned. We now require additional landscape screening when parking spaces are adjacent to rights-of-way. There'll be some improvements to the existing landscaping based on our new standards, but there's no wall that's required.
Okay. Because this is a site plan, it's not coming back as a public hearing next week.
That's correct.
Has there been any other outspoken, besides for the one landowner, has there been any other from the, I know I've received calls from the apartment complex or the condo apartments across the street. I just want to make sure that we've addressed all the issues, because there won't be a chance for them to come to the council at our next meeting to voice any concerns that they have.
I checked with Mr. Spence. Again, this is not a public hearing, but our policy has been we still send out notices to everybody within 350 feet, and because of the condominium associations, we actually sent out 540 individual letters, both at the Planning Commission level, at the council level. There's no residents that showed up for or against, as far as I recall, during the Planning Commission. We did receive a phone call or two. There was some concerns from residents about trucks that were being parked on the parking lot. There was concerns about, I believe, DTE Energy was using them as a staging area. Those are the concerns that we've received from the neighborhood, but not anything specific to this use. Up to this point, I can tell you we've had proposals for a distribution center, a last mile distribution center. We've had proposals for a big box retail, which would have brought significant more trucking issues here. And again, this is permitted by right secondary use, and especially if we go back to the special land use interpretation of a secondary use for the overall site, we don't believe there's any zoning conflicts or issues.
Okay, thank you.
I have a couple of questions. First of all, Triumph is currently in our city on J.L. Hudson Drive. Can you tell me what they might be thinking or what they're planning to do with the current building?
I don't know exactly what they're planning on doing, but I know that, of course, with a new facility, it takes the pressure off of the existing facility. So I know they've been talking about that. Right now, they don't have enough room to do what they need to do under a roof.
Okay.
If I may, to the
Yes.
chair, when we were doing our research, and maybe you can explain this, and we certainly want the pastor or representative at the next meeting, but can you explain that there's Triumph Church has regional centers that
Yes.
operate at different hours for different things, and I think that's important to understand how they, it's not just one location, one church where all the parishioners or congregates are coming.
So Councilman Cruz asked about how many members are in the membership at Triumph Church. Of course, to grow to a size of church that Triumph is, you kind of take the approach where we have satellite churches. You have one main church, and then you plant churches in different areas of either large cities and or even counties and states. So it's still governed by the same church name and organization, but they're able to reach more congregants by, of course, opening up a church in other areas, in this case, all over the Detroit. They have locations north in Detroit proper, north, that's of course Southfield. They have one in Northville, which is south. I don't know about y'all, but these Texas boys, when it's north, and when it's south, so we get confused when you're telling me Northville's south and Southfield is north, so, but anyway, and then Dearborn is the one out east, or, sorry, to the west.
And I think they have one in Flint, too.
They have one in Flint.
Yeah, in Flint, yes, correct. And so with that, they're able to reach just a lot more people. They're able to grow the demographic that way. And so that's how you grow to that size. And so they still may need the facility, or were you talking about the Millennium Theater?
Correct.
Is that it? Yeah, they may still need that facility as one of those satellite branches of the church, but the important thing is a lot of that traffic that's happening there, because they do not have enough parking in that parking lot. So a lot of that traffic, of course, moves over to this location.
And I understand all of that. What I'm asking then is, maybe through you, if you could ask them what their intent is for that building. That's more of what I'm looking for.
Yes, and through the
Because I
chair,
understand.
I did request that a representative from Triumph Church be available on the 27th when you're actually going to take action possibly.
Okay. And then, going back to the Star Theater, there was a restaurant right in the front. Is that part of this?
That is now going to be, if you look on the graphic, believe the lower left part of the graphic, we've got a small grocery store allocated for that space. And just to the north of that, there's a retail clothing store.
Okay, and so the restaurant and ice cream that was across, that's going to be utilized too? Those are going to be small rooms? So they're just going to use the whole,
They
everything,
are.
all the restaurants, everything?
Yes, so the main church spaces that are used on Sunday are to the right side of this graphic and plan. To the left, that is what they call the Compassion Center. It's a combination of office space as well as those two retail spaces that I just mentioned.
Okay. And question, if they're going to be using for retail of any kind, will it still be will it be tax-free, or will we have to?
I believe the assessor is here, and I believe that it would be assessed as a private taxable use for that
Okay.
percentage.
Okay.
It would still be tax exempt.
Really? Yeah. Okay, I thought, you want to just come up and address that? Thank you. I thought that's what someone had told me.
Yeah, it would still be tax exempt for the whole property.
No matter what they did on it? If they-
Right, because they own it, they're functioning in the capacity that they were incorporated for, so it would be tax exempt.
Well, I thought they didn't own it.
Well, they're going to buy it.
Oh, they are going to purchase it outright?
That's what I thought.
I think your question's regarding would the grocery store be paying taxes?
Yeah.
If
And he
it's
said
on the
no.
same parcel, it's going to be tax exempt.
But if the grocery store is a for-profit business,
It would still be tax exempt.
Wow, I didn't know that.
there might be a challenge there on our part.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Madam President, I'd like to just hear a little bit more about the Compassion Center and what type of activities might be taking place there. Is there some type of social safety net, public agency, beyond what we see in our typical faith-based? I mean, I think we need to ask that question.
Okay.
I don't know what a Compassion Center is, or,
Will that be a question for the church or for,
can you
I
answer
can, I
that?
can tell you what the space, so to the north side of the plan, as you can see, it's just a large division of office space. This is everything from educational counseling to uses associated with learning new trades, computer use, laboratories with computers, after-school tutoring spaces. And so it's basically, again, Compassion Center, the idea was that you have a place where people can come community-wide to use it as a resource to improve their current situations. And so it's a ministry-based service from the church. And I said Compassion Center, the retail spaces are either part of that, or I don't really know exactly what they are planning on doing with that, if that's part of the Compassion Center or not. But Compassion Center is mainly those uses that I just mentioned. Similar uses as that.
So is that mental health, substance abuse, or medical? Would that be part of it, or that's, I'm hearing a lot of things.
Yeah,
Would
that
mental health counseling be happening there?
What?
Would mental health counseling be there, any substance abuse?
That was not in our program when they were telling us to designate spaces.
And if I may, Madam Chairman, I'm sorry, would that be something that, I mean, our zoning planning would allow in that area? Mental health counseling, substance abuse, medical?
I think if there was, I'd like to research that, Mr. Zorn, but we do have some exclusions or limits on emergency shelter, and overnight stays are limited to a certain period, couple-week period each year. But I'd have to look at the broad category of regional center. I didn't hear anything that so far that would be exclusionary, but we'd like to get a more defined how that it's going to operate.
All right.
okay, Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. I'm going back to the traffic in the ingress and the egress. And while I realize the Star Theater, I believe, had 18 or 20 theaters, if my memory is correct, the shows all started, they were all staggered, different times. So I don't believe there was ever a situation where all 20 theaters, the movie started at 9 o'clock and ended at 11:30. How many services do you have on a Sunday?
There'll be 3 services on a Sunday.
Starting, and the times?
Starting times at 9:30. I'm sorry, 8:45.
Okay.
8:45, 10:45, and 12:45. It's a pretty common distribution of services with churches this size, and it has a lot to do with us controlling the traffic on and off the site, with measures that we can also take if it's ever a problem. So we're constantly in consulting services with churches who are dealing with traffic issues. But with these times that we're seeing, we do not predict any issues with ingress and egress on this site.
Well, the later time, I mean, my concern in that area, and I'm very familiar with it, is 12 Mile and Telegraph. It presently is backed up. I will be honest, I haven't driven it on a Sunday, but it's just bumper to bumper. Once Chick-fil-A opens up, it's going to be even worse. And if the traffic is going that way, I just see a lot of congestion because, 1,600 people that will be exiting at one time. I don't know, that's a lot if it's going to go that way, the traffic.
Yeah, just typically, the traffic on a Sunday on these roads are drastically less than what you would see during the week. Theater, the majority of the theater times are start at 12 with matinee times, and they
Correct.
go from that point forward with, of course, peak times being in the middle evening hours. Something that was important on Saturdays, the traffic study showed that there'd be 72% less traffic than what it was when it was the Start Theater as well.
And then is there, I don't see, will you be offering any catering facilities here? Example, can someone get married here and then hold their reception?
The chapel is typically where something like that happens. It's a more intimate venue. And so if they had it catered, what would be the issue with that?
Well, I was trying to see how big the room was, and again, how many people that would hold.
With 300, do we have a 300-seat chapel service, or chapel space there? So
Okay.
if it was packed, that's 600 cars, primarily happening possibly on a weekend. That doesn't put a dent in the numbers that the traffic study ran, because
Okay.
they also took that into account because we loaded the building 100% on those traffic studies based on when they might be used. Even in that case, this facility and this site is plenty large to handle, quite frankly, a really large catering service. But that has not been necessarily a target or focus of any of our designs at this point.
And then what about during the week? Do you have different events? I know many of the churches in the area, there's, something going on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I mean.
Tuesday night Bible study at 6:30. Again, due to mitigation possibilities associated with traffic and congestion, that time can be made anytime, okay? They use it. If there's a problem, then they change the times on it. That's pretty common with a lot of churches this size. Thursday night, choir rehearsal. And right now, that's the only thing specified on weeknights from Triumph Church. And during those times, we're back to our 1,095 spaces, which is really 1,387 spaces that we have exclusive access to.
Do you presently have a grocery store at any of your locations?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
Is there presently a grocery store at any of your locations?
A growth?
Grocery store.
Grocery
Or
store.
food, didn't you say a food store?
At any of our locations that we have developed, that we've helped plan?
No. Triumph
Triumph
Church.
Church, no, ma'am.
So what prompted them to consider something like that at this location?
That would have to be discussed with the pastor or somebody from the church. It's pretty common these days that a church will use common services to actually serve a community, so it's happening more and more. We've designed churches that have water parks, oil change stations, I mean, on and on and on and on. Now, on this plan, that's not planned because you're seeing exactly what we have planned for this site. This is office spaces, this is ministry spaces associated with the church, and it's a grocery store and a retail clothing store, and that's it.
Okay. I guess to the planner, would we, as a council or the city, have any say-so with reference to, like, the store or the fashion center, if this is approved?
Well, this is an item that I've discussed with our city attorney about religious uses and accessory religious uses. So the courts have upheld broad interpretation of land uses related to religious institutions. Again, we'd have to defer and spend some more time with our city attorney. What constitutes an accessory to a religious institution versus what is something that may be, for lack of a better term, blatantly not related to a religious institution. But again, you could make the argument, churches have food pantries, churches provide food and services, complimentary and otherwise. Churches have clothing donation centers. So all of those uses that have been mentioned, at least in preliminary review, seem to be accessory to, just at a larger scale than what you might find in a neighborhood religious institution.
But usually aren't those uses, what's the word I'm trying to think of? They, donate. You know, if you need food, we will donate to you. If you need clothing, we will give it to you. It's not anything for sale.
Well, again, I think we need to have a representative from Triumph Church to answer some of these specific questions. Again, I don't know what their business model is, but again, all these uses could be argued as accessory to the primary use at the location.
Was this brought up before the Planning Commission?
Some of the, some uses that maybe originally proposed that are not part of this were discussed.
Okay.
Again, we have to be respectful and careful with religious uses and interpretations, and I don't want to say too much without discussing this with our city attorney.
Okay.
Something else about that is we've had a lot of what they would consider retail in vernacular, but doesn't necessarily mean it is for profit. We have coffee shops inside of lobbies, they do charge, but that money pays for the people that are serving them, and then the money's not used for profit. I mean, it's going into either ministries or being given to offerings and other things like that. So it's not necessarily profit as we would know it as businessmen and women in the secular world.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah, just to follow up on something. Tara or anybody else who might be able to answer this, let's say when people are exiting the facilities, we sometimes have a traffic light fixed, so Terry, you foresee this being one of those cases where people are exiting, we would have to have someone there to monitor that traffic light to make it longer or something of that nature?
12 miles under the jurisdiction of the Road Commission of Oakland County. And
So
they're the
they would
ones
have to
that,
go to the county?
they're the ones that would control and set the timing of traffic lights for
Right.
weekends versus weekday and other uses. So that they would have the jurisdiction to do that. And I know that Telegraph Road was mentioned, which is an MDOT road. And I can tell you that every time we have a development along Telegraph and there's concern about traffic, basically MDOT says we spent millions of dollars redesigning Telegraph Road to move large volumes of traffic. All the traffic signalization is timed for that,
Right.
that there's less traffic on the road than there used to be, even though it is congested. It is at a level of service that is maybe a rated D, which means you have to sit at a light a little bit longer than you would like to, but it's still functioning. And that unless somebody wants to spend over $1 million doing a study to change the lights, they feel that it's adequate. So in this particular case, 12 Mile may seem like it's the primary use. It is under the Road Commission of Oakland County, but there's the side road and then parts of Northwestern Highway that exit.
Right.
There's multiple ways of getting in and out of this facility.
Okay.
And then on weekends, you don't have the 1 million square feet of office users coming and going during the day. And we're still adjusting to the impacts of COVID and people working from home, which we're seeing anywhere from 25 to 30% easily a reduction in people coming to work. So you factor all those things in. Again, we don't, based on the qualified traffic engineers and the study and the reviews, we don't see this as being an issue.
Okay, well,
I mean,
I think you answered my
I can't
question.
unequivocally say 100% of the time, but based on the normal usage of the religious institution, the hours of operation, and that the primary use is on weekends and one night a week, which is off-peak of what the general population is using,
Right.
there's not going to be an issue.
Okay, will you answer my question? I'm just trying to figure if there's a bottleneck at some point in time at that exit, they would have to go to the county and or not us. We can't control signals. Okay, you answered that. Let me go on to the next question. What is the dollar value of this site improvement here?
What is the value
Dollar value of what this investment?
the entire renovation of this facility?
Yes.
It'll be 20 million.
Over what period of time?
I do not know that the church will have to answer that question. I don't know what their plans are in phasing this construction. I'd know that the church would be the first thing designed and built.
The church would be
The
what?
church section of this, yes,
Oh,
sir.
Okay. This would be my final question, but from a business standpoint, will the grocery store and a clothing store, will it be in the name of Triumph Church, or will it be some other entity? Because I'm thinking about the taxes myself.
Yeah, I do not know the answer to that, sir.
Okay, so I would assume that, well, if they're not in the name of Triumph Church, they can be taxed, not unless they are a nonprofit. That's just what I'm listening to the assessor and whatever else that popped up. If those two entities are not in the name of Triumph, and they don't have a 501c3 designation, they should be taxed. Okay, that's the extent of my comments, Madam Chair.
So,
Okay,
through the chair, and the city assessor is here, and this is what I was previously told. If it was a for-profit business doing business as profit, then it would be taxable. But if it's under the umbrella of the church, it's non-taxable.
Okay, all right, well, we'll get that cleared up next time we have someone before us who can answer those questions, really.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mayor?
Just very quickly, I'm having a little trouble deciphering this. Which end of this is 12 Mile Road?
Oh, 12 Mile is to the left.
All right, and then, so you're doing something to create that assembly hall on the south side of the building? Because wasn't that all theaters there?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand the
On
question.
the south side, where the main assembly hall is?
Yes, sir.
Wasn't that all theaters?
There were 2 large theaters in that location.
Oh, okay, so you're just taking a wall down?
That is correct,
All right.
yes, sir.
And then, in the upper left corner, those are the administrative offices?
No, sir. That's the Compassion Center, still offices. It's a large bank of offices, multiple uses inside those as office space.
Okay, thank you.
If I could, that was where one of the restaurants was located.
That is correct. There were
2
there was
restaurants.
2 restaurants and, a restaurant and 2 clubs / restaurant.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I think you're saying the church will be here the next time we have a representative?
We're requesting, this is
Well, yeah,
scheduled to
yeah.
come back for 2 weeks, in
Yeah.
2 weeks from tonight, and we've requested that representatives of the church be present to answer any of the questions that are remaining.
Okay, Councilwoman Banks?
So in 2 weeks, we will be reviewing the site plan?
That's correct.
Is there any reason representatives from the church were not present this evening that we could have asked questions prior to the site plan?
Well, this was a discussion purposes, and I can't speak of why the representatives of the church weren't here tonight. I know they have a number of their consultants here, but it surprised me as well.
They better be here next time. I know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you.
So this was for discussion purposes only.
Mhm.
This is scheduled to come back in 2 weeks, and we will make sure that representatives of the church are here with their consultant team on the
Okay.
27th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything else? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, council, wow, we're only on item E. Presentation and discussion regarding the site plan review request for Maple Tree Apartments LLC for the construction of a new two-story, four-unit building to be located at 28545 Franklin Road on the west side of Franklin between I-696 and 12 Mile.
I'll do the introduction. I think Mr. Scher is here. But you may recall that council approved two separate row housing development along Franklin at 28545 Franklin Road. We have an existing RT attached single family. Future land use is moderate density multiple family. And they would like to build one additional four-unit townhome building, tear down an existing single family and build an additional four-unit. Site is existing is both RT and RMM, and it has moderate density multiple family land use designation. So if you look on the screen, up in the northeast corner is where their current development is taking place, and they're proposing removing an existing single family on the southwest corner along Matriarch. So here's a close-up view of their single family, which they're currently renting out. And that's the existing conditions. And here's existing survey of the site. And then this is what's proposed as a four-unit attached townhouse, similar to what is being built on Franklin. This is the floor plan. And these are similar building elevations to what is being currently constructed. And these are current photos of the units under construction that many of you might be aware of. So it's a similar style, just not as many units as what's being currently built. Now, during our investigation, as you know, we do require a sidewalk be constructed from the main entrance to the public sidewalk system. And we did make a recommendation that one get installed from the new development to Matriarch. And we did some research, and back in 1978, when this development was first built, Matriarch was a gravel dirt road, and there was no development on the other side. So the developer at the time requested a waiver from the Zoning Board of Appeals to not construct the 5-foot sidewalk. But the caveat was the zoning board agreed to give a temporary waiver of the construction of the sidewalk along Matriarch based on the finding that the preliminary development was in an area that didn't warrant a sidewalk. However, they did set aside a condition that the appellant place a bond, suitable instrument, which will remove or ensure that the construction of a sidewalk be installed at a time that the city feels it is required, and that it was determined by the city attorney's office. There was a covenant signed by the appellant in 1980 that stated they will build or cause to be built a sidewalk on that certain easement previously granted by the city of Southfield, and then it's recorded. We made a recommendation that at least a sidewalk connection to Matriarch be established, and we proposed that a small crosswalk be added to connect to the existing sidewalk on Matriarch. So that was one of our conditions of approval that the applicant is objecting to, and will be seeking a waiver. But through our course of our review, we actually found that the ZBA granted the waiver back in the 80s, but with the condition that a sidewalk be installed at the time that Matriarch was approved and that development took place. So that's the one sticking point that we have here. Planning Commission did recommend approval, and I think Roger Scher's here representing the development. He can weigh in. And again, this is for discussion purposes only. It'll come back, I believe, next week for possible consideration. With that, Roger, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just give me 1 second to set up here. This is the current Maple Tree development, new area, and the proposed area where we're going to construct a new building. Good evening, Roger Scher, 31300 Orchard Lake Road, Farmington Hills, Michigan, representing Maple Tree Apartments LLC, proposing the new 4-unit building on the Maple Tree Apartments site. We're seeking site plan approval, as mentioned, for this new 4-unit building. The site plan approval is based on a number of factors. We are first and foremost in compliance with the zoning ordinance. We are under Article 6. The RT zoning allows for attached townhome development, which we comply with. Specifically, we are well within densities permitted. I will address the sidewalk as well. We're well within densities permitted. We are compatible with adjacent property owners, in harmony with the existing community. The house, in fact, that we're taking down is an outlier. It's not in compliance. I'm not sure why it was left when the community was built, but we're now seeking to replace that house with a new 4-unit building, which is in harmony with the existing community. Second, on a practical level, we're, again, taking down a house that's 30 years old does not reflect the new building code. The new 4-unit building will be perfectly in compliance with the new building code, and again, in harmony with the existing community. Now to address the sidewalk, a third important part of this proposal is recognizing what Maple Tree is. It is a gated community. We are surrounded by perimeter fences and walls which separate the community, secure the community from the surrounding area. Our entrance is gated. The gates come down at 9 o'clock at night. They go up at 6 in the morning. They're flawlessly monitored. We have cameras at the entrance. The residents love the security at the community. The residents in the newly proposed building will enjoy the safety and security provided by our perimeter fences, walls, and gated entrance. And importantly, this complies with the overriding principle of and concern of council for making sure any new development does not violate the health, safety, and welfare of the community. I'm not sure where this connection to Matriot came from. Before I was ever a developer and before I built my first home, evidently there was some bond from an earlier developer that, again, left a single-family house sitting in that corner that was, again, today doesn't meet the building code. I don't think it was ever in harmony with the existing community. Connecting a sidewalk and opening up an entrance through our gate would be exactly what our residents don't want and violate the safety, health, and welfare of the community. We spend a lot of money on our gated entrance. It's not that the perimeter walls and gates are unattractive. We maintain the community. We're every year making improvements to the roads, the curbing, replacing asphalt with concrete, replacing walls that have come down with new walls. So
we market the community as a gated community, and piercing through the back end to put a sidewalk connection to Matriot, which is really not the flow of activity, both pedestrian activity or vehicular activity. Most of our residents are heading toward Northwestern. If I may, talking sidewalks, Mr. Crode guided us to approval of this first development, the 26 units, and advised us we did need a connection to a public sidewalk, which we provided right here. We did not have that. Along with that, we're putting the sidewalk in along our frontage here and here. And what's nice about this sidewalk that was never here, there were 2 bungalows which we acquired. Putting this sidewalk is probably the most important part of this development, because we have a senior community next to us to the south. Believe it or not, you'll see wheelchairs coming down Franklin Road. It's absolutely insane. Now we'll have pedestrian traffic. Mr. Crode advised us of the art requirement, which we have a beautiful plaza right here with benches and landscaping. And residents will be able to use this sidewalk and now walk all the way down to Starbucks, which is at one point was a more social type of establishment. I think that will come back. But so this sidewalk is very important. A sidewalk connection to Matriarch would violate the very security that we try to provide. And on a practical level, for what purposes? I can't speak to what went on with previous bonds. I don't know where that money is. I'm not sure. And it's not a matter of even money here. I'd rather take the money for the crossing and donate it. So that's all I have to say at this point.
Okay.
One last point I should mention is this building that we're proposing right now, it really is part of the site plan that should have been approved when we did the earlier 26 units that council approved. The only reason why it was kept separate is we never thought we would need a site plan approval for this. We thought we'd get a demolition permit, take down the old house, get a building permit, largely with building the new 4-unit building, largely within the footprint of the house. When we were advised by staff that we needed to go through the site planning approval process, we did this separately. Otherwise, we would have attached it. We couldn't, at that time, we were too far along in the site plan approval process for the 26 units, so we couldn't piggyback on for this building, and which is why we're bringing it to you now independently.
Okay. Thank you. Council, do we have any questions? Okay. Could you just show me on your picture there where the Matriarch sidewalk would be? I just want to see where that's.
Sure. Matriarch actually wraps all the way around the property like this.
Okay.
The house is right here.
Okay.
The entire perimeter is either fenced or walled. So the connection that staff is proposing would be from this area, the sidewalk in front of the newly proposed building, through the fencing to Matriot across the street here. But again, Northwestern is this way, and the commercial buildings are this way. That's where the pedestrian-friendly access it really occurs. That's where the walking activity occurs. No one is really walking back this way, nor do we want anyone penetrating our gated community coming this way.
Okay. Thank you very much. Terry, since this was just for discussion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a few comments on the sidewalk.
Yes.
Because at some point, Mr. Chair would have to seek a waiver. So a condition approval, because, again, this was approved in 1978, and Matriarch was a different road, and there was no development across the street. And the ZBA at the time made a condition that a bond be placed and the sidewalk be constructed at such a time as would be required. He's going to have to go back to ZBA and revisit that issue. And again, I don't know how the ZBA is going to answer. Our obligation is that we're reviewing this in 2022, and we have a pedestrian connection pathway shall be installed from the public sidewalk or pathway system to the main entrance of the building. That's a current requirement. Also, sidewalks no less than 5 feet shall be constructed 1 foot inside the right-of-way line of all abutting streets. So those are 2 requirements that are currently in place in the zoning ordinance. I can't ignore it, you can't ignore it, the ZBA can waive it. Again, what happened back in '78 is, I will say that the city kicked the can down the road. And we have been building an infrastructure here. We've got over 20 linear miles of pathways and sidewalks in the last decade. And you got to start somewhere. And what I proposed is we can debate about him building the entire matriarch requirement based on ZBA. I proposed a simple solution to meet the spirit of the ordinance and to connect to the existing sidewalk on the west side of matriarch that then is, that whole subdivision has sidewalks. His statement that nobody's walking there is because there's a fence and there is no sidewalk connection. I proposed a gate with a fob, similar to what the same fob that you would use at the vehicle entrance on the front to get access, so that if the residents want healthy opportunity to go walking, they can, without walking through the subdivision, the development on the roads to get to the main sidewalk. So I want you just to think about that before this comes back.
Okay.
And again, you got to start somewhere. And we did require the sidewalks be constructed for the other units, and there's a benefit to that. And again, I can't just ignore the requirements. This council have been supportive of sidewalks and building our infrastructure. And then lastly, I'll say with gas being now over $5 a gallon, more and more people are walking. Mm-hmm. So for COVID, people walk, for healthy, for gas, and for all the other reasons, plus it's required. Just please keep that in mind when we come back here for your final approval.
Okay.
Because either it's approval with the condition that it goes to the ZBA, or it's approval with the condition that it be constructed. We can't just say we're going to ignore that.
Can I respond?
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
I'm not sure if I understand your statement about if people are walking, they can have a fob, and then the fob will open.
Well,
I don't understand that.
What I suggested is that if he wants to control security as a gated community, there can be a gate access, a pedestrian gate access at the sidewalk, that the fob would allow only residents to come in and out of his development, similar to what when a vehicle pulls up to a gated entrance, there's a fob or some other access code that allows the gate to open up for you to drive into the development.
I understand the driving, but you're saying when you're walking?
Sure, if there's a pedestrian gated entrance on Matriarch, you use the same fob to get access to open the gate, to walk through, so that it's not just open to the public. He's making the argument that this is a gated community. He can maintain the gated community with a fobbed gate system.
Do we have any other any other fob gate communities in Southfield?
I don't know for a fact, but I do know that in many urban areas, and I use my daughter as an example, who's lived in 5 gated developments in urban settings. The gate is fobbed to get into the pool, to the dog park, to get into the parking structure, to get from the parking structure into the hallway, and from the hallway into the main living area. It's very common in multi-density, mixed-use developments in many of our urban cities. So it's not something that's unrealistic to require. Otherwise, there could be no gate, but I'm being respectful of the fact that he has a gated community, but we also have this requirement that was never satisfied about a sidewalk on Matriarch. And again, I proposed a solution that's less costly, that meets the spirit and intent of our ordinance, because it connects to the existing sidewalk system on the west side of Matriarch.
And I guess to the developer, you don't agree with that?
No, if I could make a couple of comments, and again, Mr. Crowd was very helpful in guiding us to the approval of the 26 units that we did, and putting the sidewalk to the entrance on Franklin Road. And I appreciate that. Getting back to this, let me just make a couple of comments regarding the sidewalk. First of all, going back 40 years, if this site plan were approved and never built, and I brought you the site plan and say, here it is, it's approved, it's 40 years old, you'd say, Mr. Scheer, this is expired. Take it and put it in the garbage. Go, you want to build a project here? Come and reapprove your project. And then we'll tell you where your sidewalks can go and where your gates can go and start from scratch. Don't bring us a site plan 40 years old and tell us what you need to comply with. Second of all, in terms of a fob, if we were building a project with a detention pond and we said, well, it's not a gravity-fed pond because we need a pump station, a mechanical device to service the removal of water from the pond, because it can't be done with gravity, we would say, you know, we don't like mechanical devices. They have to be maintained. Here, again, what you're asking is we take a fence that serves as security and we put a fob gate there, which again, only would be useful for one-way traffic from the residents exiting, not from outsiders coming in. So it's limited use. And then it's a mechanical device. It's not cameraed. Our entrance is cameraed. Our gates are closed at night. They open during the day, but everything's 24-hour monitored. This would be a gate that's not cameraed. We don't have an internet connection there that we can camera the area on a 24-hour basis. So there are limitations. I agree that walking is an important activity today. $5 gas makes walking perhaps more important. Does that mean if the gas price falls to $2, it's a commodity, it trades up and down? Do we then come back and ask to seal up the gate because people are now driving again? Or they're using electric vehicles where they don't even have gas? I mean, it's a silly argument. I understand that people are walking. They use our interior circular route as a walking path for exercise all day. So we understand that, but we're not answering anyone's need for exercise by putting in a gated entrance to Matron.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Terry.
I had one comment. Just going back, with this sidewalk conversation, I think it would make sense for the council to add it rather than having the petitioner spend more money at a ZBA meeting and just have it as one of the conditions from the council. But that's my personal opinion.
Okay,
But
that's what discussion is mean.
correct, and the ZBA can get expensive and time-consuming. It's just easier if we just approve it from a council's perspective.
Well, again, it's the council's pleasure, it's a requirement, so it would be a condition of approval.
Right.
If he would like to seek a waiver from the
He would have
ZBA,
to go.
he has the right to do that, but your conditions of approval would be subject to any waivers granted. And since the ZBA already acted on this, their decision runs with the land unless it's amended. So they could decide to waive this again, but they have to review this in light of their previous decisions. So what you'll get from the planning department is a recommendation to approve. We're in support of the project, subject to the conditions of meeting the ordinance. And then you can approve it that way. And if you want to approve it subject to the condition that a waiver be sought, Mr. Scheer has the opportunity to go and seek the waiver. If the waiver is denied, then he has to build it per the conditions of the council.
If I may respond, let me say that you do have a window here, an avenue for approval without a waiver, and that's based on health, safety, and welfare, which is an overriding concern that trumps all other issues in the ordinance. We have a safety and security provided by our perimeter fencing under the provision of health, welfare, and safety of the community that is clearly a part of this development. It gives you an avenue to support and vote on this addition, this new building, without having to go to ZBA. So while I recognize the normal condition of going to ZBA if something is approved conditionally, this doesn't have to be a conditional approval. It would be expensive to go to ZBA. It delays construction during the seasonality of our development activity in Michigan. And again, as an attorney, which I am, and understanding the ordinance as I now do, I see a clear path toward approval without seeking a waiver.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. This was just for discussion. We've discussed it a lot. We've got a lot to think about before this comes back to us within 2 weeks. So, Council, if you have no other questions, sir, we want to say thank you. If you have nothing else to add to us tonight, we'll move on and see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Terry, thank you. Our next item is the Economic Development Initiative application for 16200 West 9 Mile Road.
Good evening, council. I have several economic development initiatives before us this evening. Two of them, the first two are requests for PA 210s, it's the Commercial Rehabilitation Act, and we will be asking to set two public hearings on July 11th for the Atrium project, which is 16200 West 9 Mile Road.
Okay.
The first public hearing that we'd like to set would be to establish the district, and then the second one would be to place the project in the district. So I have David, what's your last name, sorry? Debukai of Contour. They recently purchased the property. We have a short presentation to go over what they're planning to do at the location, and then we can move on to the next item.
Can you do it in 10 minutes or less?
I hope so. Good evening, Madam President, Mr. Mayor, Honorable Council. As Shelley mentioned, my name is David Dedbuka. I'm here representing Contour Companies with a request for PA 210 for the property named
Is your
Atrium.
microphone on?
I believe, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Better? Atrium Apartment Complex in Southfield, Michigan. Atrium consists of 96 units, 2 buildings, 4 stories. We acquired the property March of 2020. Due to the pandemic, we didn't get a chance to start on the renovations up until this year. It is a rehabilitation budget of just over $4.7 million, consisting of roofing, all new HVAC systems, split systems, appliances, windows, entry doors, kitchens, flooring, plumbing, electric, mechanical. The north building actually had a fire in 2019 before we owned it, and we've rebuilt the structure to the building. We've started adding a new parking lot, sidewalks, painting the exterior of the building, cornices on the roof line. We plan to gate it and have access for hopefully, the hospital right across the street. We're going towards workforce housing for the property. So we're here requesting this, some current video or current photos of the existing conditions of the building during the construction now. And that is the Atrium.
So again, the city would continue to collect taxes on the property if city council should approve this. And once city council, if they take action to approve it, it would go to the state treasurer's office for their final decision on the project. So again, we're looking to establish 2 public hearings on July 11th to address this request.
Okay. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. With reference to the economic development incentive, this property was purchased in 2020,
Yes,
so and you have done some renovations on the property.
we have. We started a few months ago.
So does that qualify for this?
Yes, so there is a 6-month look-back period. So they would have to submit documentation showing when they started the renovations, and it cannot exceed 6 months. The property did uncap, but this freezing would hold the value constant, and we would be requesting a 5-year abatement or freezing of the value for 5 years, as we have sought for other projects, other similar projects. So the taxes did uncap, but with this new investment, it would continue to go up, so we would be holding it constant.
So the taxes would be based on the uncapped value?
That's correct. And our city assessor is here.
Okay. And that would,
Did it uncap? Values have uncapped already?
Yes. Yes, the value's uncapped for 2021. On this one, the current SCV is $1,797,900, and the taxable is $1,768,919.
so that's what they would be paying every year in taxes?
No. No.
No, wait.
They would pay, the land would be frozen, and they would pay ad valorem taxes on the land. There would be a frozen parcel that they also pay ad valorem taxes on, and then they just pay the state education tax and school operating fees on the rehab parcel.
Are those numbers outlined here anywhere?
They would be in the application.
Right, we can provide that information to you.
I'd like to see that information, please. Thank you.
We typically provide that at the public hearing time.
No, and I realize that, but ever since we've gone to this new setting of meetings, I view this section like as a committee of the whole meeting for questions and answers and to review. And I guess to Mr. Zorn, just going forward, because there's been a few items on the agenda this evening, I just wish there was more detail or the owners were here, and I just think that's important when we're on this section. Because if we were in the committee of the whole room, they would be asked to be present, and items in the other room would not have moved forward to this chamber. So we might have to do business a little bit differently with some of these moving forward. We keep the same format. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. Just looking at the pictures, both internally and then if you look at it externally, it definitely needs a pick-me-up. I see that, besides for what you're proposing on the inside, you're looking at repairing and restripping the parking lot, windows, cornice upgrades. The exterior will be repainted. Do you know what color you plan to, is it going to be something that fits in with the neighborhood, or is it going to be something flashy?
Well,
Is really what I'm,
we've already painted the exteriors, and
Oh.
that definitely stands out.
Okay.
It stands out in a good way, I believe, because with the surrounding properties, gray tones, very modern tones.
and then for the internal, what, are you taking the units down to the studs, or is it more cosmetic and then?
The north building, like I said, was a fire damaged building, so we had to structurally repair the second, third, and fourth floor. And we're opening up the kitchen. This used to be a small, pocket window. We're opening that all up, so it's a very open feel for the residents. And that also includes, new electric panels, new split system HVAC systems, plumbing. There were a lot of plumbing issues in the four-story building. We're repairing the elevators as well.
Okay. Our write-up says it's 10 years. You mentioned 5 years.
The law allows 10 years.
Correct.
And what we've, in the past.
We've done 5.
We've done 5, that's correct.
So
And then they can come back in year 5 and request an additional 5 years. And if city council were to approve that, then it would go for another 5 years.
Okay, so we
Or
are,
it's your pleasure.
right, but they are asking for 5, not 10.
They are asking for 5 based on our recommendation and discussion.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah, I will, I was going to just go ahead and motion that we establish the public hearing in July 11, 2022, and also to schedule a second hearing as considered.
Okay. As long as no other questions? Okay.
Okay.
There's a motion on the floor.
Support?
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum, to establish a public hearing for July 11th to establish the district, and then also to set the project in the district, two public hearings for July 11th, as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you. The second property is the park at Trowbridge, and Contour Companies also purchased that property at 24111 Civic Center Drive. And again, they are requesting a similar PA 210 for 5 years, and we would look to have a district established as well as the project, a public hearing for a district and the project to go into the district on July 11th. And would you like to go over?
So the Park at Trowbridge we acquired March of 2021. It's a 8-story former senior living, 298 units. We will be adding an additional 16 units to the building, and very similar to what we're doing at the atrium, we'll be doing at the Park at Trowbridge. All new mechanical systems. We actually added a new rooftop chiller just recently, all new windows, doors, interior, elevators, kitchens, bathrooms, all being repaired as well. And we plan on completing this project spring, summer of '23.
Okay. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Has any work started on this project yet?
Yeah, we just started with windows and the rooftop chiller.
Okay, no paint on the outside?
No, this one is going to get a nice power wash on the outside.
Okay, and the work, I'm assuming, is the same prior to 6 months will be included?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Banks?
In the write-up, it says that all personal property is now exempt. What does that mean?
It means that they don't, based on the amount of personal property that they are responsible for, it's under the threshold, so they wouldn't be paying for personal property. The cost is below $80,000, I believe, for their personal property for their office.
What personal property in both complexes would?
They have small offices for their management. So they, again, this property uncapped, and they do pay a significant amount of taxes at the location. So what they're requesting is that it be frozen, again, for a certain number of years, but the city will be collecting taxes on this property and all the properties that we talk about today. But it'll just be held at a certain level until the improvements and the 5 years are up, or if the city council asks for an additional 5 years. So we still will be collecting taxes on this property
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
at the new level.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Council?
Well, I would just move that we approve the public hearing for July 11, 2022 and also any subsequent hearing as stipulated in the write-up.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, to establish a public hearing for the district, to have the property establish the district for this property, Trowbridge Associates LLC, and to set the property in the district for July the 11th, 2022. Establish the public hearing as presented here tonight and in our write-up. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have the Economic Development Initiative for the SLT Holdings at 27522 Northwestern for a commercial rehabilitation exemption certificate under PA 210.
Right. This project, we are asking to set a public hearing, and we actually would like to change the date to July 25th. And the district for this area is already in place. So we put a district in place along the Northwestern Highway corridor when we assisted New Soul Garden with their renovation of their project. And we had it extend through to the Plant Moran property. So at this time, the owners of New Soul Garden purchased the former restaurant, and they're doing a major renovation to the property. And we have Rebecca and Ryan here that would like to give a short presentation on that redevelopment.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for entertaining this request. Just real quick about the developer. They're family-owned and they're operated. They've been in Southfield for a long time. They're a small business enterprise. They're also a minority and veteran-owned business enterprise. They've been here for over 30 years. They started in this area on Northwestern Service Drive. They opened up the new Seoul Plaza, which is home to the Daebak Korean Barbecue restaurant, and Mayomi Coffee and Dessert Cafe in 2018, which has been an enormously successful restaurant within the city. That alone has created over 75 new jobs within the city. The property we're talking about is right next door to that restaurant. It is the former Copper Canyon Brewery that has sat vacant since 2014. Mr. Yee, the owner of SLD Holdings, has had his eye on that for a while with a vision to create a kind of like the Nino Salvaggio of Korean and Asian market. So they finally got the seller to sell the property to them this past year. They did their due diligence. There's no environmental issues related to the property. And we found that the property was what we call functional obsolescence, which means that it cannot, as it's currently constructed, achieve the desired use of what it wants to be, which is the market. So this project has got a lot of kind of things going on with it. It's currently comprised of 9440 square feet, but they're also going to add on another 5,025 square foot onto this thing. They're going to kind of throw the works at this thing. They're going to have a garage door opens, garage door opening kind of style thing for, outdoor and indoor kind of market space to be kind of activated at the same time. They're going to be using all energy efficient equipment with new LED fixtures installed in walkways and in parking areas. The garage doors that kind of integrate during the warmer months. They're going to have EV stations kind of put there for electric vehicles. Functional landscaping that's intended to reduce stormwater, landscape upgrades that are going to include a walking path and an outdoor art display, and kind of to build on that a little bit. A lot of that landscaping and walkway is going to be along the Northwestern Service Drive corridor, which will be used for public use for beautification of that entire corridor, which is a target of the city's reactivation of that area. They're also going to convert 16 underused parking spots that are no longer needed, and they're going to turn that into kind of a green space for outdoor amenity. The total investment is going to be about $6.3 million, and the city will continue to collect $20,000 in taxes, approximately. This is kind of a real rough projection of how it's going to look once it's done. You can kind of see the path down towards the bottom. That's where the Northwestern Highway Service Drive is. They're going to have like a pagoda and some kind of other art displays that they're going to do to kind of beautify the corridor a little bit and make it more attractive. It's really designed to kind of integrate with the restaurant that's located next door. It's supposed to kind of be like a center for people to kind of come in and experience Asian food at the restaurant, but also have a marketplace to where they can go and get some of these items and foods and stuff to prepare on their own. That's all I've got. Ms. Rebecca Lazarus here is the project manager that represents SLT Owning. So if you have any details or anything like that you have any questions on, she's here to help with that. And I'll ask her questions. Thank you.
Thank you. No, we're very familiar with
Yeah.
Councilman Cruz?
Yep, just a real quick question. I was trying to catch it when you said it. So with the green space, is there going to be places where people can maybe get their food in a restaurant and come outside and eat? Is that what the idea is, or we just kind of just more beautification?
Good evening. For the grocery store, we will, where the garage door is open, sometimes we will put a couple of small tables and chairs there, little, maybe 4 cedar tables and chairs there. But typically, the restaurant eating, there's many patio settings out there for people to eat. That food would stay over there. The food for the grocery store would be food that people would take home to actually cook and prepare at home.
Okay, very good. Well, very excited. Can't wait to see what turns out.
It's on my commute every way on the way home, so I can't wait. It's going to be a problem for me.
Okay, Council. Councilwoman Banks?
Just a question on, I guess, brownfields, the economic development, et cetera. Before we submit anything, do we always make sure, like, the taxes are paid, water bills are paid prior to submission of any of these recommendations?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council, we receive a motion to place this in the public hearing.
What was the,
July 25th.
I'd like to make a motion that we establish a public hearing on Monday, July 25th, to consider the approval of SLT Holdings' request for assistance pursuant to Michigan Public Act 210 of 2005 as
Support.
amended.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Brightwell, to approve the public hearing for July 25th for SLT Holdings as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have our Brownfield redevelopment plan and tax increment financing.
Yes, that's correct. And we have David back again. So the city received a request relative to the adoption of the Brownfield redevelopment plan and tax increment financing plan on behalf of McKinley Development Associates, LLC. They have purchased the property and they're looking to redevelop the former school. We have a short presentation on that project, and David, why don't you take that away?
Great, thank you. This is a fun project, I think, for the city, the adaptive reuse of the old former McKinley School. It'll consist of 18 condos inside the former school and 22 townhouses on the remaining acreage on the site. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to the existing facility, abatement, asbestos abatement, HVAC systems, windows, ADA requirements. We're projecting about $10.5 million in investment to the site. The eligible activities, as you see there, is just about $2.2 million for demolition, asbestos, site infrastructure. And this, with your approval, would be great, because we plan on starting this pretty quick, and would be wrapped up by summer of 2024. Again, it's a great adaptive reuse of a beautiful building, and we're excited for it. We can't wait to get this one started.
So again, with the brownfield redevelopment, the developer would make the investment, and the Brownfield Authority reviewed their request of their eligible items. And so, as mentioned, the demolition, the asbestos abatement, some site infrastructure improvements, all of those items that they'll pay their taxes, and then they'll be able to recapture those dollars to the approved amount. And the Brownfield Authority met on Friday, June 10th, and approved this request to bring it forward tonight. And again, we're looking to hold a public hearing on this project and for approval on July 11th. So again, they'll be able to capture their $2.2 million investment, and then the city's Brownfield Authority will also be able to receive money that will go back into our revolving fund account. So that will help us with future endeavors.
Council, any questions? All right, I just want to say I've toured this property, and it's definitely in need of some help, even those trailers that have to go. The one question I do have is when driving through the property, it looks like a lot of windows have been damaged and are now boarded up. Are there any plans for site security?
I mean, I think the case with the windows, if I'm not mistaken, was a local kid that, was caught doing it, and it was just a one-time occurrence, but he did do quite some damage on a few windows. But since then, I don't think we had any break-ins or window damages since that. I think that was last year.
The person that did this visited the school 3 times, was caught on a 3rd time. It was actually a 30-some-year-old man. He was arrested, and his family did not bail him out.
Okay.
I don't think they wanted him back home.
All right. Council, motion?
I move that we set a public hearing for this item for July 11, 2022, and as stipulated here in the document.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, that we schedule a public hearing on Monday, July 11th for Brownfield Tax and Increment Financing Plan as proposed by McKinley Development Associates, LLC. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Ryan is back again.
So now we get to
Thank
plan
you.
this out a little better.
Musical chairs.
Again, the Brownfield Authority has reviewed a request from the Southfield nonprofit. They are they sold their property, the John Grace, the former school, John Grace, to Lockwood Companies, who is renovating the former school into the John Grace Arms project. This project, they're requesting, again, a public hearing for July 11th for approval of the Brownfield redevelopment plan, but they're also seeking funds from our local development a revolving fund. And as you know, the last 5 years of many of our projects, we've been capturing the taxes that would normally be back dispersed to all the taxing agencies. We've been keeping those dollars so that we can use them for future projects. And so we have Ryan who's going to go over this request, and we can talk about the revolving fund after that.
Thank you. Thanks again. Just real quick, this property, I'm going to do a little bit about the developer, the Southfield Nonprofit Housing Corporation. I believe Mr. Zorn is part of as well as the mayor. It was founded in 1973, and they're committed to preserving access to affordable, quality housing to seniors, disabled individuals, and income-eligible families. They currently maintain 4 communities within the city of Southfield and about 504 residential units. So the parcel we're talking about is the former John Gray School, as Shelley mentioned. It's one parcel comprised of 4.61 acres. Older buildings, originally constructed in 1921. It operated as a school up until 1980, and then it was repurposed and used as a community center, library, daycare by the city until 2017, and it is now currently vacant. Phase 1 was done on it. They found no environmental issues associated with the property, and it has been deemed as functionally obsolete by Michigan Master Assessor last May, which makes it eligible for the brownfield plan. They are looking to renovate the existing 25,900 square feet and construct an additional 43,430 square feet addition that matches the facade of the existing building. So it's not going to look like this kind of Frankenstein modern versus, a historical building. It's going to create 16 senior living apartments comprised of 51 one-bedroom apartment units and two-bedroom units. They will be reserved for residents that earn less than 60% of the area mean income, with 33 units reserved for residents that have less than 30% of the area mean income. It's going to include a library and community space that'll be accessible for residents within the surrounding neighborhood. Improvements include parking lots, sidewalks, landscaping, and the creation of a courtyard. The existing building will undergo renovations to meet the modern demands. They will utilize energy-efficient materials, and they are intent on achieving the National Green Building Silver certification. The capital investment on this project is $17.7 million. Here's kind of a rough graphic of how this building will look and kind of in space. The existing building that will be preserved is on the left, and the addition will be on the right with the courtyard in the center. There's a public park over to the right, too, that will see some degree of improvement. As I said, it's eligible for the brownfield program because of its functional obsolete status. In the internal demolition activities to make this property, make this building usable for the intended purpose is about $200,000. The asbestos abatement activities in combination with lead abatement activities is going to be $1.27 million. In terms of reimbursement, there is no tax revenue that's being requested at this time. The city's policy to access local brownfield revolving funds indicates that a brownfield has to be in place and approved by this council to be eligible to those funds. So to that end, they will be requesting $1 million from the eligible costs to deal with those eligible costs, which will be reimbursed from the Southfield, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, local Brownfield Redevelopment Fund. And that's all I have.
Let's just go back. Mr. Zorn, do you have anything to add regarding this project?
Just a reminder to council that the property is still owned by the city. It's under option by the Southfield nonprofit, and the partner with the Southfield nonprofit is the Lockwood Group, who's the current property manager for the 504 units. In the December 21 presentation to council, we had made reference to regarding the use of these revolving loan funds for this activity. We are still waiting to get MSHDA's approval on the tax credit funding. If you recall, we had a number of presentations in front of council regarding the complexities associated with getting those tax credits, and we did submit an application before the April 1st deadline, and this was one of those equity sources in this project. Thank you.
So again, we would be requesting a public hearing to approve the brownfield plan and to approve the allocation of the local brownfield revolving fund dollars. These dollars would not be allocated until there is, the project is approved by MSHDA.
That's correct. What's the date?
Right.
What's the date, Rochelle?
The 11th of July. Both of these projects, the redevelopment of the McKinley School and the John Gray School, help the city to achieve multiple goals. We are reusing schools, which is it's a part of a green philosophy that we've adopted here to reuse and repurpose our existing properties. It meets with the planning department's initiatives to help reinvest in neighborhoods and bring more life back into some of our neighborhoods. As well, we're helping to achieve some housing goals by creating assisted living options or lower living options for seniors. And then the McKinley project helps us to create a variety of different housing options that many are craving within the community. So we're really pleased that this project is helping to refurbish this area by John Grace. I know when the Michigan Works was located in there, the building really needed to be brought back to life, and the neighborhood could definitely use this infusion of activity.
Okay, council?
Question.
I got one.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
This project, we're still waiting on the state. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So we're, with the public hearing, and even if it passes the public hearing, nothing will go forward at all unless we hear back from the state on the...
That's correct. We want to show that the state that we're prepared to be a partner on this project with them.
Okay.
And this is the best way to do that. And again, like all of the projects, if the development doesn't move forward, then the incentive really stops at that point. And if a new project were to come forward, there would have to be a resubmission for something different.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, I just wanted to be clear on one thing about in terms of the price point. So the units, I know you mentioned it in there about the, I don't know if it was the mean, median, or mode of the income in the area, but nonetheless, I ain't had stats in a while. So can you just give me an idea of like a actual price?
I don't have that information handy, but I can get it for you. Mr. Zorn, do you?
Yeah, the rents will be market rents. A two-bedroom would probably, I don't have the HUD guidelines are, but they would be at HUD guidelines, and the eligible population to live there is 60% of the AMI. We also have
60% of what's the
area medium income.
That's
So
what that
this
means.
is,
Okay.
this is meant to be an affordable, low-income senior development. And at 32, 33 of the units will have basically a contract Section 8 voucher where residents will only be paying 30% of their income. And I'll use Woodridge, where your medium income is probably about 8.25, so the typical rent is $275, $300 a month. And they back out their health care, and they're paying only 30% of their gross income. So it is part of an affordable housing solution. And the two projects in front of council tonight are very opposites for people who want to stay here, and that the McKinley School, the empty nesters, kids are gone, they worship here, they eat here, they shop here, their friends are here, they stay. And then the John Grace is an affordable project because not all of our seniors are fortunate to be able to keep their homes. And we see it with the waiting list we have, McDowell Towers, River Park Place.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. No other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move that we establish a public hearing for this item for Monday, July 11, 2022, for a brownfield plan of Public Act 381 of 1996.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Bragwell, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the public hearing for the brownfield redevelopment plan and tax increment financing for McKinley Place redevelopment.
I'm sorry, we're on the John Grace Arms.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, that's okay.
For the John Grace redevelopment. I stepped out and we went on.
And this is to approve the brownfield plan as amended and to seek funding from the local brownfield revolving funds account for the nonprofit.
As presented here tonight.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the help. All right. Our next item is the approval of agreements for the rehabilitation of 8 Mile Road from Southfield Freeway to Greenfield. The MDOT job number 210075 CON.
And not to M53.
MDOT to M53. Thank you. I need help. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
you're not really too far off. This is just our portion of a much larger project. So MDOT has presented these contract documents for the portion of this project that is going to be happening in Southfield. We participate in the local share after the federal funding. So this is a pretty simple mill and overlay that MDOT is doing, but their larger project spans from the Southfield Freeway all the way to Van Dyke. So we're just the westernmost mile of this much bigger project. The project for our portion has federal aid in the amount of just under 1.8 million. MDOT's share is just under 600,000. And Southfield's share with some contingencies. This is based on construction cost estimates, and we do want to make sure we've got some contingencies authorized by council just in case the bid prices come in high. That's happening out there, and I want to make sure we're prepared for that. And I noticed there's a typo in the recommended resolution language. It is correct, but on the front page of the background, it needs to be updated. The total Southfield share, including the contingencies we're asking for tonight, is $116,645. So that's our standard share plus our portion of a 10% contingencies of the construction project. So this evening, asking the City Council to authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city and provide the funding from the fiscal year 22-23 Major Street Fund.
Okay, council. Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve the agreement for rehabilitation of 8 Mile from Southfield to Greenfield as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Brightwell for approval of the agreement for the rehabilitation of 8 Mile from Southfield to Greenfield as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Our next item is the approval of agreements for the rehabilitation of Northwestern Service Drive from Telegraph to Bell Road.
Yeah, so this project is a City of Southfield project. This is one of our jurisdiction roads of these frontage roads. And the project consists of milling off existing asphalt pavement. Then we spread 2 inches of an aggregate. It's really a separation layer between these, between the old pavement and the new pavement, and then we overlay that with 5 inches of new asphalt. This is a heavy pavement rehabilitation that we've done on several of our major road projects, and we've had very good success with this type of a fix. So with this type of fix, because the road elevation's coming up a few inches, all of the curbs are replaced. This project has curbs mostly just on one side of the road. Most of the west or south portion of this service drive has an open shoulder. The fiscal impact, this particular project was bid already, so we do have actual bid prices reflected in the council item. They did come in about 22% higher than the estimate. So the as-bid construction cost is just over $2.6 million. Our federal funds are capped at $1.72 million. We'd also have received authorization to apply 2022 local road improvement program funds from Oakland County toward this project. That is $195,473. So after some additional contingencies and our construction engineering costs, the Southfield share is approximately $1.38 million. So this recommended resolution is to approve the project and to authorize the mayor and clerk to sign both the MDOT agreement and the Oakland County Local Road Improvement Program Cost Participation Agreement on behalf of the cities, and then provides the funding in the amount of $1,380,539.76 from our Road Bond Construction Fund.
Okay, council? I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve this item, the approval of the agreement for rehabilitation of Northwestern Service Drive from Telegraph Road to Bell Road, job number 2064 SFLD.
Support enthusiastically.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum, to approve the projects in the agreement for rehabilitation of Northwestern Service Drive from Telegraph Road to Bell Road as presented here tonight. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry you got the short straw tonight, Lee.
She's not. Council, we're at the council portion. We have any comments tonight? We'll start with you, Mr. Hoskins.
I have nothing to add tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Brightwell?
Yes, I just want to announce that there will be a Veterans Resource Fair, June 30th, from 9 a.m. to noon at the Executive Office Building of Oakland County. That's in Waterford. Veterans will be receiving food. A veteran can get their updated eligibility to use veterans funds, but the item is most important. It's June 30th from 9 a.m. to noon at the Oakland County Conference Center at the Executive Office Building in Waterford. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
My question is directed towards the city administrator. I did have a question regarding the sports pool, the arena pool. I know that it's going to be closed this season, and we've enabled or authorized our P&R director to talk with Oak Park and Farmington Hills about some reciprocity. Do we have an update on that? Because on the city's website, there's nothing, and I'm getting phone calls about it as well as many things on social media.
I believe we have an arrangement with Oak Park. We've not come to a formal agreement with Farmington Hills. However, like a lot of other communities, finding lifeguards has become a very, is part of that challenge. And I can ask the Parks and Rec director to send a communication out to the full council. I think there were some things that were broader in scope that we were trying to do. Sunday-type activities, specifically Southfield, and what we ran up against was the staffing issue. I will also just say to council, it's been interesting as we talk about this 9-mile recreation corridor from I-75 to 275, because our three neighbors immediately to the east are operating with an interlocal agreement in place to share their recreation facilities. And there will be broader conversations about that in the future. If you'll allow me to have Ms. Fields respond to the question directly, though. I believe, though, that we have come to an arrangement with Oak Park.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have to the city administrator and city attorney is about the sewer backups that occurred. Will the city be, as mentioned, the homeowners who filed claims for the backup have all received rejection letters from the MMRMA, but obviously those homeowners feel that that they are due some type of relief. And I know in previous conversations there was going to be an official statement from the city about why we're not paying those claims. Is that?
If I may, Madam President, the last conversation I had is that based on the MMRMA, there is a statutory reason that the claims are not paid, but that the city in past practice did go in and clean the homes and sanitize them. I'm not sure, maybe I'll need to consult again if we want to put out a legal statement saying, you know, I'm going to talk to MMRMA. I'll get back
Okay.
to you. I just want to be really careful about what we put out in
And-
public. I mean.
Correct. And I agree, but, you know, when, it's a weird situation where the city, with the homeowner said, oh, our pump station failed, and there was this failure. I understand we have a practice of helping the homeowners by cleaning up and sanitizing, and then we tell them to file the claim, but they're very confused by what they're being told by the city and then by what they're being told by the MMRMA.
I just want, what they're being told by staff members as they go through.
Well, what they're being told when they call to file claims, they're told they just submit it, that's all. When I say when they're told by the city, they're being told, oh, the city's pump station failed, the backup failed. They're hearing that information and they say, oh, well, the city must be at fault. And then they get this rejection letter saying, well, the city's not at fault. So there is some of that confusion, if you will. And that's why, you know, it's in the messaging, but you do have that confusion going on.
I think also because the past practice, as I've been told, is that over the years, we didn't have to, but we went in and took care of cleaning up. And then when you apply the Michigan law that's applicable to the issue under the GTLA, the Governmental Tort Liability Act, that then gives us immunity based on several things, and they don't define the word fault. But then when people say, well, the city was at fault or something failed, I understand that. So what I would like to do is just look at what did we do in the past, because I'm familiar with some things that happened. I just don't know what the communication was, and I don't want to put something out to like legal advice and then someone come back and say, well, the city said, because we're already there right now, but I do.
Correct. And that's why I think
Yeah.
if we were able to provide some type of communication to properly explain this situation, I think it would be helpful.
And that is the role of the Michigan Municipal Risk Authority, to respond to that, just from the question of legal fault. You know, I think this is a conversation that's best closed door.
Okay, thank you.
I will reach out to MMRMA tomorrow.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's all.
Okay, thanks. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, I just wanted to wish all our fathers a happy Father's Day, which is coming up this Sunday. Also recognizing Juneteenth coming up as well on the same day. And just a special shout out to my dad, the real Lloyd Cruz, as I call him, for I wouldn't be sitting here if not for him. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
Everything I wanted to say has been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, I just wanted to remind everyone that our evaluations are due June 21st. For anyone who hasn't turned those in, please do so. You should have your evaluations handed into HR by June 21st, and then they'll need a week or two, maybe, I'll give them 3 weeks to get back to us. And then we can set up a date to review everything. And again, along with my colleague, I'd like to wish all fathers happy Father's Day, and to everyone have a happy Juneteenth, and we'll be, enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you. Mayor?
We also have coming up on June 26th, the following Sunday, the annual Garden Walk. This year, the featured neighborhood is Beacon Square, and 15 yards will be on display. The tickets are $10 and can be acquired through my office. Also, the starting point is the parking lot of Leonard School, the closed Leonard School on Winchester. And again, it's from 2 to 5 p.m. on Sunday, June 26th. And I'd also like to thank the council for your interest in providing brownfield support for both of the school conversions. Times have changed. We don't have as many young people of school age in the city, and we need new housing options. And certainly in the case of our subsidized senior housing, as has been mentioned, we have over a year waiting list to get into McDonald Towers, River Park Place, and Woodridge. So it's, this will provide some much-needed housing for, affordable housing for our low-income seniors. Thank you.
Thank you. City Administrator?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to just make a public plug for seasonal employees, college students and such. We have 8 vacancies in our Public Works, or 10 positions in our Public Works group and 8 in our Department of Public Rec, in our Recreation Department, primarily grass cutting, people who work and cut things. And I'm bringing that up, that's manpower we need to be able to do things that we take for, grass cutting and keeping the parks maintained and litter picked up, et cetera. And if you know any young person, maybe a college student, if you can refer them to our HR department, we've just got to find those bodies. Also, a number of meetings, PFAS have come up, and I just want to remind council that staff estimates we have roughly 319 wells for drinking water in this city. This council, with what you did at San Marino, you've knocked out 99. We're almost done with that project. A few parts, that'll be done. So you have roughly 220,000 or 220 wells still in the city. You've also authorized money for testing in that, and we'll be rolling that out soon. In conversation with EGLE, we really don't have any evidence of PFAS being present in Southfield, and if anyone's aware of it, I'd like someone to share that information with us. I mean, I think we've heard about it a half dozen times here, and with the most respect to the individual, if he knows something, please let us know. I mean, I don't know where this problem is, and again, this council's to be commended, because I don't think there are too many cities across the state who've done what you folks have done. Knocked out 99 in a year with the assistance of a grant from the state, and then being willing to test. Remind people that wells are, the only time they're required to be tested is upon installation. Those records don't come to us, they go to the county. So we're working our way through that, but if someone's on a well and wants to get tested, we have resources. PFAS testing, the test runs are just under $300 per test. And we actually, when we built that budget, we anticipated doing some testing, kind of looking at a mapping of the wells. So I just want to make that comment. I'll also wish everyone a happy Father's Day, and Juneteenth is a real educational event for all of us. I've had 2 good conversations with my oldest daughter about what it meant, and that's part of an education process. And when you look at some of the crazy things going on in the world, we all need to be better educated. So have a happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Madam Attorney?
I have nothing further to add. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Nothing to schedule? Nothing else for this meeting tonight?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Could I just want to thank council for the proactive vote tonight, unanimously saying that this will be our campus into perpetuity. And that means a lot from a standpoint of investing taxpayers' money. And that was the reason we wanted to get that done tonight, and that was being just, council is right on board with what the city needs to be done at this point in time. I want to thank council for that. Thank you.
Thank you. No other business? This meeting is now adjourned.